Hey everybody, ROTL UK, Matt and Ash here. We're just getting set up for the show. Hope everyone's well. Hey to everyone in the chat who's been saying hello. Dan Pask in the building on Twitch saying, hey guys, cheers for the quiz shows. Great idea for the summer. The old me is dead actually sent an earlier message saying in the 2025 free agency upgrade a weakness. That's what I mean. A weak spot, improve it. Absolutely, and I mean, we'll be talking about who some of those weak spots might be and some of the players that are going later on. Brent says hi. Carlton says it's a beautiful day in the UK. I mean, where are you,
Yeah.
Carlton? Because it's been shocking here.
Oh, it's been beautiful here.
Well, I say it's been shocking. It's been warm, muggy, overcast. It hasn't rained, but yeah.
Oh, it's
Uh,
been sunny as hell here. That's why I'm in shorts.
mm. Also, Carlton asks, who won the quiz? Well, it was almost a three-way tie. Almost. But Brett won again. Brett Kerwood? I want to say Kerwood. I can't remember his surname. His name's Brett, and he's on our Discord, and he's absolutely amazing at trivia, apparently. He asked me to donate it again to the same place. We're going to match it. I just need to actually put the donation up. So congrats to Brett. Double dipping at the top. Commiserations to Ash, who actually lost a place on the previous week.
Yeah.
And Lisa and Drew H are in the building as well, saying, hey everyone, and cheers, gents. As always, if you've got any questions, just let us know. And we will get there. How are you doing, mate?
Doing well. Doing okay. A bit sweaty because it is boiling hot here, but we move. We move and excited to obviously talk free agency and probably get everything wrong like I did with the kicker thing last week. Discuss it all on the pod, saying, oh, yeah, if we're going to cut one, it'd be badly. Literally within 10 minutes of us finishing the podcast, the Detroit Lions have waived kicker James Turner. And I'm like, for God's sake.
Yeah, it wasn't the best timing on our comments there, but at least we were both in the same place.
True.
Oh, I had a really weird weekend. I was properly depressed on Saturday. Like, I don't know what happened, but I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't get out of bed until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just
God.
couldn't face the day. I don't know what it was, but I didn't have anything I needed to get up for, which
Yeah.
probably helped, but just sad. And I think the lack of football's getting to me. I know it seems weird that might be something that actually physically depresses me, but it's such a big part of what we do now with
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
whatever that is a massive part of your life. And when it's not there, it just sucks.
Yeah, that's why I cheat and took up flag football, so then that fills in the gap because it's probably going to end the end of next month. So just as training camps are on the ground, so I've sorted out. So I've got that 6 months filled with football, albeit less professional, and it's me running around looking like I'm running to the toilet after accidentally turtling. So because if you've in the Discord and you've seen the videos that I shared yesterday, and the face, which is now another meme on my friendship group chat, me going in for the tackle and looking like I've just kicked the edge of the bed. Yeah.
Carlton's referencing Ash's article on the website. It's a really good article, Ash. So why don't you just? Well, in fact, no. We'll wait, and I'll advertise it on the top of the
Okay.
show. But it's really good.
Thank you.
All right. I might open another beer ready to go. I love Modelo, but I hate bottles. Well, no, I like bottles. I hate opening bottles when this is all I have to open it.
I mean, I've got two. I've either got the classic fridge Aston Villa one, or I've got a mini Monier up there to open mine. So I've got a couple of options.
Well, I mean, I have a good bottle opener in the house, but I never bring it down here just in case someone else needs one. You know, it's a bit rude. Drew H said, "Is Fuller's not a thing over there anymore?" No, Fuller's is still a thing. As a brewer, it has gotten smaller over the years, but Fuller's is still there. No, I've just seen what you're writing
Yeah,
here. He. Oh my god.
just announced on Twitter.
What?
Yeah,
To what? Don't say
just to
it. I'm
say,
reading. I'm reading you writing it. I'm
yeah.
reading you writing it. Oh,
His tweet is well because he's obviously quote tweeted that Ron Bid putting out that they're looking for it. Well, cat is out the bag. I resigned my post a couple of weeks. Okay, no, we've got yeah, we've got to tease it ready for the. I'll put. Hang on, if I get the tweet up, I can put them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I've just gone on to his Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wonder what he's gonna do.
Oh, unless me putting two and two together. I'll say it on the show, but I think I've just put two and two together.
Okay. All right. We'll do that. Right. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, Carlton wants you to explain what financial fair shenanigans is going on, fair play shenanigans going on with Villa and Everton.
But it's not just us. We've also doing it with Chelsea, but
and Newcastle are in on it as well.
Newcastle are in it, and supposedly Forest are running with it, but we don't know who's going to come to Villa from Forest. But long story short, all these clubs that aren't being protected by financial fair play, but need to basically get within a certain amount of money by the end of this month. We're doing player swap deals where we agree, okay, yeah, we'll sell you this youth player for £10 million, we'll buy one of yours, where it's just exchange of squad players, but it just keeps afloat basically. And yes, it is technically cheating in a way because it's collusion. But if it, for example, with us, it doesn't make sense that a team that just qualified for the Champions League needs to raise £50 million by the end of the month. Otherwise, we're going to get fined. Yet other teams, have 116 things against them, and they still haven't been charged. So it's just one of them where we're basically doing the old Madden swap deal where we'll trade you this 75 rated player for this 75 rated player. That's all that's happening. It's just to balance our books. And for example, we sold him Iribunum to Everton for 10 mil, and then we've signed one of their youth wingers, Lewis Dobbin, for 10 mil. And because of the way that it works, the clubs instantly get the 10 mil, but for the buying club, it gets spread out over the length of the contract, so it becomes like 1 mil, like 2 mil a season if you sign him on a 5-year deal. So it just balances the books.
Dan is reminding you that he's a Forest fan and he is aware of what's going on there as well. It's a really weird thing. I kind of don't like that you can amortize things across the length of a contract, because I get why you do it, but at the same time, if you couldn't and it was just all in the 1 year, it would be very immediate and very clear what you needed to do to get out of things as well.
Yeah.
The amortization is the problem here.
Very much. That's how Chelsea have got away with buying 1.1 billion worth of players over the past couple of seasons, because they keep signing them on 5-6 year deals. They spread it out, which is why last January UEFA changed the rules, at least in Europe, so you have a maximum of 5 years on it, because they were signing youth players on 7-year deals.
Yeah. But then if you sign, say, £1.2 billion worth of players, you amortize it, say, over 5 years, but say 6 or 7, that's 200 million a year, which means you start off with a 200 million black hole every year.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard to live with. Anyway, off soccer, onto proper football, as we'll call it on this show. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 276. Time is running out. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. A bit sweaty because we're finally getting a summer over here in England, at least where I am in Nottingham. But at the same time, it's another week closer to football, and we all know that I love talking about free agency and stuff. So excited to do today.
We're expecting Anthony Fitzpatrick to be joining us imminently as well, so looking forward to that. So let's go through some preamble before we talk Lions news in the last 7 days, and then, as I referenced with Time is Running Out, which happens to be my favourite Muse song as well. Tell me I'm wrong, but it's a great song. We are going to be going through the Lions players in the last year of their contract, and we're going to be asking the question, what do we do with them? Now, the range of options for those players are obviously vast. You could re-sign them right now. And if you don't re-sign them right now, well, what are you doing with them? You could trade them away. You could get capital for them now and decide to cash in. The other option is that you leave them on that deal, and if you do leave them on that deal, they'll get to the end of the contract, and then what do you do with them? You could re-sign them at that point. It's difficult to say that as an option, I think, so I'd probably remove that idea of leaving and then re-signing at the end of the deal, because they'll be able to go to the market. You don't retain control. What you do retain control of is the franchise tag. And then the other option, of course, is let walk or cut now. So those are going to be the options that we go through. We're going to list everyone. Some are more important than others. I've bolded in our little prep sheet the ones which are either starters or significant contributors on the team. Although for some reason I didn't bold in Scott Daly, and I know there'd be someone really upset with that if I didn't do that. So, all right. So we are going to go through that in just a moment. But first, don't forget to join our Discord channel. Great Lions community. Great community of NFL fans in general. So come and join us there. It's free. We don't ask anything from you for that. But what it is just a nice place to chat about pretty much everything and anything. College Football Podcast have been doing some great bits. They just finished off their CUSA previews. It was in 2 parts. First one was 2 weeks ago. Second one was last week on the audio pod, but actually released yesterday on YouTube for part 2. Really interesting to listen to this about the CUSA, especially if you're interested in some of those smaller group of 5 schools. Hearing about Western Kentucky yesterday and the moves that they've made and the fact that they might be the ones to challenge Liberty. Really good stuff. The most thoroughly researched college football show you will find. So if you're interested, go and listen. They really deserve the views and the likes and what have you. Please don't forget to like this episode as well, sub to the podcast, and don't forget to follow Herman Moore on his Lions Nation Unite project. I know there's some changes coming to the way that they do things, which should really increase and also increase the quality or the number of and quality of the output that they are providing in the coming weeks and months. So you want to follow them on their Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/Lions Nation Unite. We are Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized. There's a tip jar down below, so if you want to support us in some way, there's many ways you can do that. It would be great if you could. And there's a feedback form, a Google form in the YouTube description as well. So please let us know what you think. If there's any ideas for content you want to see, or just some criticism or whatever you like, we're here for it. And Anthony Fitzpatrick is in the building. How you doing, man?
I don't know about you guys, but I'm sweating like a Jets beat writer when they see Aaron Rodgers' name in the news. I hate hot weather. I hate it, and I know the Americans will laugh at us because it's like 80 here, and that's just a summer's day. That's just a spring day to them. But for us, it's a really big deal. I hate it. I can't sleep right. I'm grouchy. I'm moody, and it's. So I need to come and vent on here. I will. This is my heat-induced vent today.
Well,
this is why you go on holiday in Iceland, isn't it?
Exactly. All my holidays are up and around the Arctic Circle generally, and this is why. It's better to warm up in the cold than to try and cool down in the heat, because you can't. We don't have AC here. It doesn't work properly. I've got this shitty little fan, which just blows hot air around and makes me even worse. So... I'm suffering for the craft, man.
Well, it's true about the Jet side of things. I've literally just come up in the news in the past couple of minutes. They've had to release a player because he got arrested for drug possession. So,
anyone?
Oh, what did they get Aaron Rodgers for ayahuasca? Isn't ayahuasca banned there? Can't they get him done for that?
No, it's Tay Hayes, unfortunately.
Who was it? Sorry,
DBT Hayes. For marijuana possession, he was arrested over the weekend.
Nice. Well, at least he knows how to have a good time. All right, let's crack on with some news. And first was the slightly worrying news released over the weekend that Barry Sanders disclosed that he had had a medical scare related to his heart over Father's Day weekend. praised the doctors that looked after him and what have you. But just a reminder that life is precious, and whether you're a legend of the sport or not, you know, it comes for all of us eventually, I guess. That's a horrible thing to say, isn't it? But like, it's true, and we should make the best of it. So, best wishes to Barry. Well done to the doctors who look after him. News on Cam Sutton. Jason Fitzgerald of Over the Cap has revealed that Cam Sutton is going to, or has, filed a grievance against his dismissal from the team. He's perfectly entitled to do so. It's part of the collective bargaining agreement. Frankly, this was expected. The way it went down, I mean, the fact that he was arrested and then released without charge, but the Lions cut him before finding out what the effect of the investigation was going to be. It seemed fairly clear that he was going to contest what was happening, especially with the amount of money at stake. The monetary effect of that is that pending the arbitration, 40% of the cap hit will hit the cap this year. And if nothing else happens before the end of the league year, that will remain on the cap this year. So that's $4.2 million. Now added to the cap from the previous figures that you will have seen. Once the arbitration resolves, the effect of that will roll up in the league year that it is resolved. So, if it is resolved this year, and the grievance is dismissed, then the $4.2 million will fall off the cap this year. If it's allowed, and Cam Sutton gets his money in full, that means that the extra $6 million or so is going to hit the Lions cap this year. If it's in a future year, then the $6 million in addition will hit the Lions cap in that future year. If it resolves in the Lions' favour in a future year, the entire amount of $10 million will... the $4.2 million that has just been added to the Lions cap will be taken away in a future year. So we're just really waiting to see how long that's going to go. But with lawyers, and you know how long they like to drag things out, this could go on for some time. So for now, I think it is going to be that $4 million will just sit on the cap. Anything you guys want to add on that particularly?
No, not really.
No. And then some happy news. Jared Goff got married over the weekend per TMZ. There's some controversy about how they reported it, and apparently Malcolm Rodriguez is also getting married this week per his Instagram story. So congratulations to Jared Goff and his new wife. And boys, did you read the article? Because it was a bit... I mean, it's very TMZ, shall we say?
Yeah, it is very TMZ. So, I know, obviously, some members of the media weren't happy with how it's reported and hence didn't link it, just sent the congratulations. And yeah, it's good for Goff. Like, this offseason's got a whole lot better for him. And then, honestly, I actually found out in reverse. I was on Instagram, clicked on Rodrigo's story, saw, oh yeah, the thing that he shared from one of his friends, oh yeah, let's get you two married. It's like, oh, he's getting married this week. That'd be cool. And then 2 seconds later, Jeremy tweeted about the TMZ articles. Like, oh, it just seems to be that time of the season for the Lions. People are, obviously, players have announced pregnancies. Remember this time last year, roughly when like basically the entire O-line room revealed that their wives are pregnant. This year, it seems to be marriage. So good time for the Lions, I think.
Yeah, I'm done with quarterbacks and wives stories for now. I'm burnt out. Like, good for Jared, excellent, love it. You go away, have fun, come back for the season. But yeah, I'm done.
I wonder if
with
Jared Goff
quarterbacks and
had
wives.
a backup at Cal that we haven't heard about yet.
Oh, God.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers used to be at Cal before. I'd be like, God, you can make a link there, but like, I don't know why people care.
No,
I
no,
can't...
but I'm sure we can look forward to seeing Christian in bikinis. Oh,
Well,
God.
yeah.
What a weird comment. Like, why is it that the TMZ, like, why can't they just be the first of the story? Because that's like a coup in itself. Why do they have to be like, yeah, bikinis? Like, I don't get it.
Because that's what they are.
I mean, it's like what? Is the New York Post any better? They're basically the same thing, right? Or I don't know. It's like reading Nuts magazine.
This is why I hate the off season, because stuff like this takes precedent, and like there's no we can do about it.
Well, some off-season news, which is slightly more relevant, is that the Lions' legendary beat writer Justin Rogers has announced in the last few minutes that he will be leaving his post at the Detroit News next month. Justin Rogers, who I believe was the person who was praised by Jeremy Reisman as someone who's really helped him throughout his career. Justin Rogers, who I believe the Detroit Lions podcast have had on their show multiple times during their live shows as the best in the business. Someone who effectively is universally loved in and outside the room, who provides excellent content. Ash, you have a theory about what might be his next thing, because he's alluded to the fact that he's going for a new opportunity, but we don't know what yet.
Yeah, so if people remember the news of last Monday, I believe it was, another legend of the Lions beat retired completely, and that was Mike O'Hara. So the Lions now suddenly have an internal opening for a lead news reporter. Putting 2 and 2 together, could Justin be making a step up and becoming the Lions' own personal reporter? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's just me putting two completely separate things together for a wild theory, but it would make sense in a way.
It would make massive sense, and it would be the best man for the job type thing too.
Exactly. That wasn't how Mike started as well. He was at the Detroit News, got his reputation there, then joined the team.
And also the timeline makes sense in terms of Mike would have told them a few months in advance that he was going. They would be announcing they would be looking for someone new. You have to go through the interview process, and now like a 3-month process starts where you hand in your resignation, you've got to work your notice. Yeah. Next month would kind of make sense for all of those things. So the timeline fits, but yeah. Anyway, it's going to be sad to see Justin go from his usual gig, and if you're wrong and he leaves entirely the Lions, then it will be our loss for sure. Interesting stuff. Anyway, we are here to talk Lions free agents of next year and whether we need to take any action at all. And I was trying to list out the available options, so I'm just going to rehash this before we start going through. We're going to go offense to defense. We're going to go position by position. We're going to highlight, thank you, Ash, whether they are restricted free agents in any way, whether exclusive rights or just a normal restricted free agents. But the options are going to be thus: re-sign to a longer deal now, trade them away now, let them play out their deal with the tag in the bag with the intention of using it, let them play out their deal with a view to potentially letting them go, or the other option really is that they're not going to make the grade now and they're going to end up being cut by the end of the season or hit the practice squad, which I kind of put in the same bucket. If they're not on the main roster for the exercise here, I think that adds up to a cut. So I think those are all the available options. I don't really want to let them play out their deal and then re-sign to a new deal at the end of it on the table. One, because we can do that now by re-signing them with an effective deal at the end of this season. But also, if they get to the end of their contract, unless we tag them, they can just go to the market and see what they're going to pay them. So it doesn't really make sense to have that as an option. So those are our buckets, and we're going to go through them right now. We're going to start off with the only quarterback with a deal ending this current season, which is Nate Studfeld. $1.21 million is his average annual value, and the average annual value will be what I quote to you guys at the end of every player we're coming through, just to give you some context in what they're being paid. Nate Studfeld, boys, one, does he make the roster this season? And two, what do you see for him at the end of the season if he does make the 53?
I think he makes the roster for sure, because as much as we would love for Hooker to become QB2, given the reports out of training camp so far, that seems kind of unlikely. So he's definitely a keep this season, with a view to potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, that it can happen, move on from him at the end of this season, and then Hooker can take that step up to QB2 next season, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a need for a clipboard holder, isn't there? Like, at this point, it's kind of like, meh. Well, if Hooker's not ready, he'll certainly be here. But I guess even if Hooker is ready next year, if the deal's right, he'll still stay as a 3. He's never going to get a starting gig in the league again. So if he finds something comfy here, he's working Vetman for QB3, then fine. But I don't really care either way. I don't really, unless Hooker doesn't develop, and then he needs to stay for a bit longer.
Fair, I'm with you. Keep with a view to either releasing or re-signing at minimum. I mean, the market clearly isn't there for him as a quarterback anyway around the league, so it doesn't look like he has any other options. Running backs. 4 of them here. Craig Reynolds is a restricted free agent on a $1.08 million a year deal. Sullivan Knight is also restricted. He's on a $985,000 deal. And then 2 exclusive rights free agents in Jake Funk. He's on a $1.055 million deal. And Jermar Jefferson on a $915,000 deal. They're both exclusive rights free agents. So, just to go into this again, for those of you who aren't quite sure about what this means, restricted in any way means that the Lions control their destiny, but in different ways. Restricted free agent means that you can put a tender on them. That can be the right of first refusal tender, which pays about $2.2 million. That means that they can be signed to an offer sheet by another team, and then the Lions have the option to match that to keep them here. Otherwise, they can be given a second round or a first round tender, which pays them more money at each escalating level. If that tender is placed, then they can be signed to an offer sheet by another team, and they will have to pay that round pick to the Lions in order to make effectively a trade for that player. So if you put a second round tender on a player, you might end up paying them, I think it's about $4.5 million. But then someone else can sign them, but it will cost them a second round pick. I think a first round tender is something like $6.5 million. So it can get pretty steep, but if you put a first round tender on a player and you get a first round pick for a player, that's pretty steep too. And then exclusive rights free agents. These are for players who haven't accrued at least 3 seasons in the NFL. That means they've been on the roster for at least, I can't remember how many games it is, on the 53-man roster for maybe like 8 games or something. I can't remember exactly. They have to be on the main roster for a certain number of games. They get an accrued league season. If they have 2 or less, less than 3, they're an exclusive rights free agent, and that means that they have no choice. If they are tenders as an exclusive rights free agent, they either sign with the Lions or they are barred from playing in the NFL, and the amount of money in an exclusive rights free agent deal is less than the veteran minimum because they don't have enough accrued league seasons to be classed as a vet. So, with that said, it's like $800,000 for an exclusive rights free agent, something like that, $850, $900, something in that realm. So, Craig Reynolds, boys, to wheel back to running backs, what do you think his future is right now?
Tied to whatever Varkey does this year. Like,
Yeah.
He's going to go into this season. I think he's going to go play. It depends. If Varkey turns into some form of a Swiss Army running back type who's going to take his place on the roster and can pass protect well, then he'll be out of here. But if Varkey doesn't work and Reynolds has a good year, there might be a future for him beyond that. So it's quite tough. You would like to think you keep him going forward. I like having him on the roster. I think he's a useful addition to have for the room. So, like, I'd like to keep him regardless, really. Even if Varkey does well, like, have them 4. You're pretty well set for the future then.
Yeah, I agree. Like, right now, I'd lean he's definitely not going to get cut going into the 53 because what's out of camp. Yes, Varkey's doing great in pass catching and special teams, but yeah, pass blocking wise and running the ball wise, he's not doing as great. So I remember one of the reports is that because of his inexperience at running back, he's not really picking the right hole. So where he should bounce it outside, he's not. When he shouldn't bounce it outside, he is. So Reynolds, while he's not the greatest running back in the world, which that seems like a diss, it's not. He's very steady. If you block him 4 yards, he'll get you 4 yards kind of thing. Like we saw at the end of last season when he had to play. Does pretty well. Experienced at kick returner, experienced at special teams, who's a good RB3. So it's kind of the same with Sudfeld, as we said earlier, where keep him for this year with a view that someone else will probably overtake him next year, and then his job might be in jeopardy, and he might have to look elsewhere. And I think Reynolds, unlike Sudfeld, if we do let him hit free agency, he has a higher likelihood of finding somewhere else. Let's say, I don't know, Deuce is back in the league as a running backs coach, probably get signed there. But if not, he's got enough good tape out there that a team will want him as an RB3 with that special teams view, kind of like as I said in my article, like kind of like the Jordan Mason role for San Francisco.
I think I'm more in Ant's realm than Ash's, although you're not too far away from each other. I think keep with a view to re-signing probably is where I'm at. I know I said I didn't want to have that. Keep and see what happens, as opposed to keep with a view to release, because there aren't many players which I think you can trust to take David Montgomery's snaps if he goes down. And, you know, yes, you can say Gibbs will take some of those snaps for sure, but Reynolds is just a different body of play. He's much more similar to Montgomery. And I think he's a very high floor player, low ceiling, high floor player. Like you say, he's going to take what you give him. And with the Lions O-line as it is, there's value in having someone who can be in relief for David Montgomery that maybe you don't get from some of these other backs. I mean, Knight might be that guy as well, maybe, but you probably have to end up cutting all of the remainder of these guys if you keep Reynolds and Vaki, because I'm not sure you run with 5 running backs. Maybe you do, I'm not sure. But anyway, let's move on to Jake Funk. Maybe I've tipped my hand a little bit here. Exclusive rights free agent, $1.055 million deal. Ash, what do you think with him?
Not making the 53, but actually, no, there's a guy we're going to discuss in a bit that'll be more my candidate, but cut with a view to maybe bringing him back on the practice squad if he passes through waivers.
And
Sorry, who were we on now?
sorry, Jake Funk.
Oh, so no, I'm not for again. No, not for me.
All right, we'll move on then to Zonovan Knight, $985,000 restricted free agent. Ant.
I would like to keep Zonovan, but it depends on how he does this year. Like that, this is you say he's restricted. This is the wait and see if he earns it moniker for him, because we know he can do it in the NFL. If he's running back 4 or 5, you're in a very good position. So I will wait and see, and I will use that restriction if he does well.
Yeah, same. This is the guy I wanted on the practice squad. Like, if we don't get Knight, then Funk will be good enough. But as we saw last year when he played those couple of games, when he played for the Jets before that, he's a guy who's proven it in the league. So if we can keep him around on the practice squad in case of a Monty injury, as we saw last year when he had to come in after the Bucs game, with laughing, because that's a decent RB3 in the league, honestly, and he's our RB5 on the practice squad.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because if he doesn't make the 53, will he get claimed elsewhere? I know the market for running backs is not exactly high, but potentially he won't remain here. Can you keep him? I mean, I alluded to the fact that maybe you can keep 5 running backs, and I do think there is a possibility of doing so, especially if you don't have the fullback and want the running backs able to kind of fulfill a fullback role as well. Maybe Zonovan Knight is the only one of this group who maybe could do that, but I think it's a bit slight for it. I think all of the running backs are a bit too small. Actually,
I think Funk's the heaviest one. So I think Bam Knight, off the top of my head, is about 205. Funk's 210, 215. He's the biggest.
Yeah.
He's the big chungus of the group.
Yeah. I don't see it. I think he's going to be cut, and I think he might be claimed. We'll see. Jermar Jefferson, exclusive rights free agent, $915,000. Back to you, Ash.
I know this is going to pain a fellow panel member, cut, and there's no way back, unfortunately. He's a good running back, but in terms of the pass catching, pass blocking, and the special teams, it's just not there, unfortunately. So, cut with a view to ripping it apart in UFL next season.
And
lifetime contract to make me look smart. No, he's gone. He's gone.
Unfortunately so. Right. Wide receivers. Again, no one in this list who is going to be a massive contributor on this team, I don't think, but let's see. The players in this list are Donovan Peoples-Jones, Traquan Smith, Doris Fountain, Tom Kennedy, Maurice Alexander, and Caden Davis. Kennedy is a restricted free agent, and then Alexander and Davis are exclusive rights free agents, respectively. We'll start with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Boys, he's on a $1.3 million deal And this is off the back of signing a 1-year deal this off-season. So his salary is very low for a veteran player, especially someone we brought in from trade. There are some people who think he might start in the X position. He hasn't had the best spring, but he does have the most production of those people potentially who are listed to be in that X role. And we're going to you first. DPJ. I think this is a sort of enigma as to what to do with the X position for us. So I think you can go any which way with DPJ, really.
Yeah, it'd be the same with like him and Traquan Smith. It's like, they can do it in the NFL, but can they still do it, and can they be an effective part of our rotation? Because just as easy as they could be cheaper depth pieces, which are great for us, they could also be nuisances who take up a little bit of the cap, who just don't do that much. So you can't commit to him now for sure as hell. And I think if he balls out and has a really good year, at the worst, someone will buy him, spend a load of money on him. We might get something out of it, who knows? But I'm quite happy waiting because we've got our two main guys at receiver now. And I think the depth is good, even if he's not here. So I'm not too fussed with any of the... there's no urgency with the receivers unless they do something like really special to force their way in here.
Ash?
Yeah, completely agree. Like, he's probably the most likely of this list to make the 53 right now, but at the same time, he's not really going to be a resign now candidate. He's not going to be a trade candidate unless teams get very, very desperate. And I guess we have seen that before. Just ask us 3 years ago with Trinity Benson, I guess. But yeah, for me, it's keep with a view to either release him next season, let him see free agency, and if he comes back, fair. If not, thank you for your service over the past season and a half.
Yeah, there's no reason to do anything right now. I'd love to see him earn a deal. I think that, like, of all the players, he could be the one that could really earn himself a payday, because in this offense, we saw in the limited reps that he got and the catches he had what he could do in this offense, and he actually looked reasonably good doing it too, but his opportunity was limited, and you don't know whether that was just because in training he wasn't showing what they needed to beat out Josh Reynolds, which would have been a hard task. But Josh Reynolds himself was a person who was exactly in DPJ's shoes not a few years ago. So can he get his career back together again? Because he could get paid $6 or $7 million a year if he has himself an 800-900 yard season and looks good doing it. Equally, it could be the end of his NFL tenure if he bombs out here. So the variety of ways this can go is wide. So keep with a view to being open-minded, perhaps. Traquan Smith is next up. $1.125 million, 1.125. Ash, he's a player which this coaching staff are clearly going to like. But what do we think?
Welcome to Casper, the friendly NFL player. This is a guy who signed on a futures deal, and we've heard nothing about him since. It wouldn't be surprising me if he just didn't turn up training camp, and that's why we haven't heard about him. Like, other than DPJ, he's the one that's got real NFL production. So I looked up, he's got about 100 less yards than DPJ has. Admittedly, more spread out. So he's had about 300 to 500 yards a season. So more sustained production than DPJ, who's had one really good year where he's had 900 yards and then not a lot of else. But the fact that he's supposed to be the vet of the group, the one that the team knows, because obviously he was in New Orleans with Dan, and yet we've heard nothing about him in any of the reports. He's gone, unfortunately. He's for the streets.
And
yeah, not really a lot to add there. Same with Ash, for the streets.
Maybe a more interesting one here. Doris Fountain, the Man Mountain, the guy most in the mould of the ex-receiver, formerly of the Bears, has had himself a good spring. $1.055 million for him. And what do you see in his future?
Again, it's very difficult because, like, we've seen these guys have really good camps before. Obviously, we've seen Kennedy do it year in and year out, but translating it to the NFL is a completely different kettle of fish, especially in a team like us, which is competing. So, as with most of these guys, it's you're kind of gonna need to wow me if you want to stay next year in terms of the guys looking in, because I say we have our main pieces. So it's the same with Fountain here, really. I mean, it would be good for us if he can go into the season and go on a hot spell and lay his claim to it. That's what it's there for. But I there's not enough sample at the minute to give a definitive answer to this. It's kind of, you do just have to wait and see what these guys do. And we've got a lot of spare cap this year. If after the first half or whatever he's doing well, then maybe you can look at deals. You sign him down a little bit longer, get him in. So, but for now, you can't do no but wait and see.
Yeah, I agree. Like, he is, as you said, the one out. This is the most X build. Like, he's the guy. I don't know. I keep saying this literally every single week. It seems he's the guy that if you're on we're on a fourth down to win the game, and we need someone to go get the ball in the end zone, like a contested catch situation, he's probably the guy you pick just because of his body type. But he needs to work on everything else. The reports out camp is his route running isn't the best, and his ball tracking in the air as well hasn't been too good, which is probably why he's bounced around on practice squads. And we've seen it before. As we said, we signed that guy from the Bengals last year who had like a 90 PFF grade, and then we did nothing with him. Fountain was the same. Did really well for the Bears last preseason. We signed him after they cut him, and he was just sitting on our practice squad. So hopefully he could make it as sort of like wide receiver 6 to develop those kind of stuff. And then by season's end, he's got that role. But yeah, I also wouldn't be surprised if he's kept in the practice squad again, or cut and we don't re-sign him at all because other players have taken that leap that we're hoping he does. Someone else we're going to discuss in a minute, I think, is also a candidate for that.
I think we're going to keep him on the 53. I think he's going to sneak in as the 53rd man, and I think he's going to offer something that no one else on the team does, as that sort of basketball player in the end zone, sort of box out ability. Laporta can obviously do a bit of that, but he's a big dude. And, if he offers something sneaky good down the field with a bit of contested catch stuff, that could be crucial down the stretch. But it's a keep and wait and see. So keep with an open mind. Tom Kennedy is next up. We'll go to Ash first for this one. Kennedy is a restricted free agent, $985,000 he's being paid. Is there any chance that he's going to make it to the 53?
Probably not. No, we saw him get cut when we had a weaker receiver room. So he's probably going to get cut. Probably, as you type on the notes, he's probably going to be on the practice squad because that's the whole meaning, isn't it? He's the new version of Don Buell back. It's death taxes and Tom Kennedy on the Lions practice squad. But hopefully this is the year that he realizes if he goes to the UFL, he could absolutely tear it up. He's the perfect UFL player, in my opinion. Just good enough to be an NFL practice squad player, but not good enough to be anything above that. So why not go to the UFL and just show how good you are and make a living that way?
And Kennedy?
It's tight. Like, the story's over. Like Ash says, go and do something in one of the spring leagues. Go play some actual football somewhere and show what you can do. Don't just hang. Like, at this point, you're just going to be a serial camp guy for the rest of your career. Have a little bit of ambition and go out there and play something. Because who knows? You've seen this year, a lot of UFL guys are getting snapped up by NFL teams. They're making rosters. They're competitive. So, yeah, just go and do something somewhere else, please.
Yeah, it sounds good, but the problem is that you're going to get 4 times as much pay on the practice squad than you are in the UFL, and that's just going to be enough to hang around. Do you want to have a chance to play and maybe get paid given his physicality and his skill set and how tall he is? Or do you want to take, $200,000 to be on the practice squad? Like,
guy that goes against Campbell's whole ethos of loving football, though. You love your money, you don't love the game. Like, you've no interest in trying to make a roster anyway, because he's just not going to here. Like, there's just this plethora of even UDFA college guys who come in and have more of a chance and do bits for us. And, like, I don't know. At this point, hanging around a camp is doing nothing for him, apart from his bank. So, like, at least go give it a go. I'm sure we pick him up next year. Go away, have a year in the UFL. I'm sure we pick him up again as a camp body. I'm sure he can come back to that.
Maybe so. I don't know. It's just I feel like it's a lot easier to profess a love of the game being important when you're getting paid more than $1 million a year. Like, at the level he's getting paid, he'll have to work for a living after his career is done, potentially. So picking up 200k versus 50 maybe means, that he can actually have a retirement. We're not talking a backup quarterback getting paid between $2 and $6 million wanting to go and get a starting shot somewhere. I know what you're saying, and I do kind of agree, and I do also think that Campbell would definitely feel that way, but it's a luxury that well-paid players have.
Yeah, I kind of get it, but at the same time, the two guys we're about to discuss in this exact room are two that did that, though. They were on NFL practice squads, went to spring leagues. So obviously, Caden Davis just come from the UFL, the Michigan Panthers, and Bruce Alexander was the special teams player of the year for the USFL. These two guys that did what we're saying to Kennedy and actually got themselves more of a payday by doing it. So yeah, it's a risk. We could be saying this, and he could go to UFL and basically be a no one, and then he's back to square one. But he's got a better chance of making more money and potentially on a receiver needy team come next year, like the Panthers, for example, this year. He could actually earn himself a proper 53 spot. So it's one or the other, isn't it? Is it worth taking the risk for him? That's only for him to decide, I guess.
Fair point. All right, you've alluded to the other two. Maurice Alexander, exclusive rights free agent, $915,000. And what are you doing with him? Because he's shown some really good chemistry with Hooker in the spring.
He has, and he may fit the new style of kickoff that we have coming up for us return-wise. So I think he holds value to this team. Because, I would trust him to come up and catch a few passes if need be. He's done that. So you want these guys who... He's probably not going to be poached by anybody else, but he's useful to us, and those guys are critical to your team going throughout the year. So ideally, I'd like to keep him around if possible. Up his role a bit in the return game, maybe. Give him a good go at it this year.
Yeah, I agree, especially since, as we've just alluded to, he's come from the spring leagues, and this year the NFL are implementing the kind of return rules that they had. So this is someone who's had live game experience doing these kind of returns. So honestly, as Ants just alluded to, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a role as that wide receiver 5'6", because he's a decentish slot receiver and knows the return stuff that he could be Khalif's backup and potentially our starting kick return if everything goes well for him.
He's someone I'd really like to see us keep, but I think he's someone that we potentially would keep if we were us 2 years ago. I think there's going to be enough options at returner. How long is it going to take the players who haven't played this kickoff role to get up to speed? Maybe 4 games. Maybe got all spring, got all camp, couple of live games, and I think you'd be up together with it. So he has a leg up in that. I don't think it's going to move the needle massively. I mean, Craig can do it. I'm sure there's others that can do it. Maybe DPJ can do it. I don't like that idea. We want JMO to do it, don't we? I think. Maybe. I don't think it's going to be enough to keep him around. He had a great shot. Was it last year and we didn't keep him? And maybe he has a little bit better value now, but we also have a little bit better depth. So I don't see him sticking around, unfortunately. But Caden Davis is another kettle of fish. $795,000 for him. He's also an exclusive rights free agent, but potentially, boys and Ant, the most impressive wide receiver in the spring. Apart from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Do I have to say that? I probably don't have to say that.
Rinse and repeat what he said for the rest. Like, we can't say whether we're going to keep him now. We're not seeing him take a snap on a field. So I just have no idea. Again, hope he does well, but yeah, certainly not enough to be able to make a decision on anything.
For me, he's in that competition with Fountain. As you said, this is the guy who's been our second most impressive receiver in camp, and he plays the X role. So it's a combination of good performance and team need could realistically keep him around as wide receiver 4 or 5 behind Amon-Ra, JMO, and Leaf. He's got a real shot, which is, again, testament to how DFL is supposed to work. Players like this come in, get some game time, develop, and then potentially get shots at teams 53s. And Davis, honestly, has gone from, why the hell have we signed this guy from a rookie tryout to, this guy could legit be a starting X for us. And I say starting as in he takes the first snaps of the game. He's probably only going to get 40-50% of the snaps. But in specific scenarios, he could be taking significant reps for us.
Moving on to the tight ends, some interesting people here. Sean McKeown, the first up, the highest paid, $1.125 million. The new signing from Dallas. No?
Yeah, we got newish. We signed him about a month and a half ago.
Newish. I mean, it happened after free agency happened. And come back to you first. Haven't heard a huge amount from him as yet. But the tight end battle, especially for tight end 3, is really hotting up. It's up for grabs.
Yeah, you want it, go get it. And, it's, again, when it comes to sort of keeping these guys and what you want to do with them in the future, you just don't know. Like, any one of these 3, whether it be McKeown, be Hesse, be Zylstra, help for Mitchell and their Weber, but, like, your spot's open. You've got to go out there and win it, but you've got to kind of go and show it on the field. Preseason is going to be big for them all. That's where someone's going to be able to lay their claim for it properly. Like, doing it in practice is fine, but we need to see you do it on the field properly. It's like the same with a lot of these receivers. We need to see you do it properly. So, again, it's just very hard. You can't give any definitive answers on the Zylstra side. His injury, how is he gonna recover from that? Is he gonna be the same guy? And then the other 2 are relative unknowns to us. So this is very much there is a tight end 3 spot to be won. And if you want to be on this roster in future, you can if you go out and win it this year. So who it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, it's not only tight end 3, but tight end 4, because yes, I know he's not on here because he's on the 3rd year of his 4-year rookie deal, but James Mitchell's spot on the roster, and honestly in the NFL, is very much a threat right now. So if 2 of these make it, I wouldn't be surprised. McKeown's got sort of the leg up in fact that he is the veteran guy out of the 3, and he's played special teams, which with the new special teams rules, it seems tight ends are going to be played more because you want them blocking on the sort of kickoff units. So he's got a chance there, but honestly, as I'll come on to in a minute, he's probably the least likely to free. So for now, he's a cut with a possibility of getting through waivers and then signing as one of the vets on the practice squad. So if one of the others has an injury, you can then elevate him and you know what you're getting from him.
In agreement with you, Ash, with that. Parker Hesse, then $1.055 million coming straight back to you, Ash. He's a restricted free agent. I know you like this guy, though.
I really do. Yeah, he is right now tight end 3 for me and our fullback, because he's supposedly been taking H-back snaps in camp and looking good at it. So this is a guy, again, we signed in rookie camp after a tryout and we're like, why are we signing this guy? And then we hear the reports coming out. It's like, oh, this is why. Like, he's supposedly been out of the 3 the most impressive in camp to reporters. Obviously, a former linebacker at Iowa, so he has that Iowa tight end thing, even though he took 0 snaps there in college. Honestly, he is one of those where he's a keep with a view to maybe re-signing if he performs well at the end of the season, because I know Rock's obviously had his deal, Laporte here, but then if you have Hesse as the sort of blocking specialist and fullback at a relatively cheap price, that's our tight end room sorted for the foreseeable future, and I'm pretty happy with that.
And Hesse?
I mean, at this moment, I'd rather keep Zylstra with us. So I'd probably, I don't think he's going to get on there. I wouldn't do it. For me, I just don't really care about camp. Like, there's a big difference between doing it when you're like pads and all this, and then doing it when you're on the field. There's a vast difference. A guy like Zylstra's been there and done that. Hesse has not yet. So again, I'm not ready to make any sort of commitment that there might be anything longer term here for him. Got to see more from him. So I can't say anything more than just not at this moment in time. Like for me, Zylstra's been the guy who's been there, done that, and I'd rather take him with me.
I'm kind of with Ash in that, and in a way, in that I think Zylstra. So let's talk about Zylstra as part of this now as well, because it is all, one room. Zylstra, 985 grand, restricted free agent. I think Zylstra's going to make it, personally, but I also think Ash is right in terms of there being 4 tight ends that make it. And in a straight fight between Hesse, McKeon, and Mitchell, I think Hesse has his foot in the door right now. I don't think he's walking through it yet. But if I had to guess right now, I think Hesse would be that tight end 4. He's not my 3. I think Zylstra would be my 3, mainly because, as Ant says, he's been there and done that. But also, our team, isn't unlike Iowa in wanting to show deference to vets. And while he's a restricted free agent, and so's Hesse, Zylstra's been on our team longer. And I think they would want to show some deference to that. So that's my feeling on Zylstra. So, Ant, you would keep Zylstra, I'm gleaming from what you just said.
Yeah.
And Ash?
Yes, so would I. He would be more of like my Laporta backup as because he's more of a true receiving threat than a blocker. So to keep him for like if Sam goes down, then you've got someone who you can throw the ball to. Because yes, Brock Wright has his special play once a season, but other than that, he's kind of in the receiving game's not the best, and Hesse is a true blocker. So we do need that kind of receiving / move tight end. So I'd keep Zylstra as well, and that's a pretty well rounded out tight end room. All we're really doing is substituting Kabinda for Hesse, and honestly, I think Hesse offers us more. So that's why I'm saying we keep 4.
All right, we move on to the first bona fide starter in this group with the offensive tackle, Taylor Decker. $15 million a year he is being paid going into the last year of his deal. The Lions have not been shy about giving new contracts to players approaching the last year of their deal. Where are we going to go with this, Ash?
What I would personally do and what the team are going to do are different, unfortunately. If it was me, if I was Brad Holmes, I'd be trying to re-sign him now, only to a 1-2 year extension, but so just to bring down this cap hit this year, because I know it's 15 million AAV, but I think it's a bit higher in actuality he's getting this year. So that just again spreads out that a bit and keeps our options open going into the future, because behind him and Penne, we really don't have a guy who can start in the foreseeable future. Maybe Manu can get there eventually, but that's definitely not going to be this season or potentially even next season. So if it was me, I'd resign him.
And
this is incredibly tough. I'm very much in 2 minds about this at the minute. There's the part of me is for a while now thought that I will just run his last year and then I'll take my chance next year with what happens. I mean, he's been here for a long time. Figured even if we were let him get to free agency, we would have the upper hand because he's been here for so long. The team do value him very highly, but I'm just very wary about giving a 31-year-old with a dodgy ankle a longer deal. Like, I'm with Ash. If I'm giving him a deal, I ain't doing 3 or 4 years. Like, there's no chance I'm doing that. Not on really good money, but what's stopping me from, what's stopping me from not doing that is the fact that both our guards are old. And this time next year, Zeitler's going to be gone. He's a 1-year guy. Glasgow is going to be getting on. We're going to have potentially a lot of holes on this offensive line. And I don't want to create another one needlessly at left tackle for the sake of for the sake of money. In an ideal world, we'd let this Decker contract run out. We'd have a right tackle developing now. We'd switch Penne and we'd make the move. And I think we'd move on. But I'm very conflicted. For me, I am very much let him run his deal down right now. I want to see this year if he can still be that elite guy for the last few years of his career. Because, like I said, we're paying him good money, and we're going to have to pay him good money if we give him another deal. Like, he's earned it, but will he hold up over the length of that deal? I'm just very conflicted on it. So I'm not. I would let the deal run down, and I would take my chances next year.
I'd re-sign him to a long-term deal. Longer than a year. I think the injuries are overblown with him. So he had the ankle problem alluded to. I think that was before week 2 of last year. He was out for 2 and 3, questionable for 4 and 5, and then had a back issue which made him questionable for week 15. I think that was it. So his ankle wasn't listed on the report since week 5. And that's the only ankle problem he's had in his career. Obviously, it's the most recent problem he's had that kept him out of games. So it's not to be dismissed. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I do think that he was able to play through that for the majority of the season, and I would be hopeful that that wouldn't be an endemic issue.
Yeah.
I think,
according to PFR, he had the ankle injury week 1, was out for week 2 and 3 against Seattle and Atlanta, was questionable for Green Bay and Carolina, then was relatively uninjured until Denver, where he was questionable for back but played, and then he was not in the injury report for the rest of the season.
I think the thing is that we spoke about him 4 years ago. 4 years ago? I would say 4 years ago, about the extension which he signed. And 3 years ago, about the extension that he signed and would it end up being value for money. And I think we all agreed at some point, maybe 12 months ago, that he really had made it look value after looking like it was expensive at the time. I think the way he carries himself, the way he's a kind of leader of the team, everyone seems to look up to him as a leader of this group. I think everyone kind of... Do I get funky with this? I might get a bit funky with this take. I think everyone thinks that Frank Ragnow is the leader that Taylor Decker is. You know, everyone looks at Frank and thinks that he is the leader of that group and the kind of inspirational guy. And in some ways he is because of what he's played through in injury. But in terms of the way he holds himself out, the way he conducts himself, and the way that other players talk about them, I think Taylor Decker's that guy. So in terms of being a leader in the room, whilst also being and I'll be generous without being a homer, he's a top 15 left tackle in the league. They get paid. They all get paid big money. So the reason that you don't pay him is because you're trying to fit other people onto your roster. But we've got cap. So just do it. Like, you have maybe the top offensive line in the league, and Decker's a big reason why you're there. But also, when you're trying to bring people through, like your 4th round draft pick who is 2 years away, maybe giving your left tackle 2 years to be replaced is a good timeline idea, at the very least. And maybe 3 years to give him a bit longer.
But the issue is the length of time. Like, if you just give him another year, that's fine. Really,
I think I'd give him
you just don't want to be
2-year extension, 3 years on the deal, 2-year extension.
It depends what your money is, because that's fine, but in a couple of years we're not going to have so much money, and these deals generally get backloaded, and they'll have issues back then, and that's where it is with me. It's just, and I say, as long as he's fine, then great. But if as guys get older, the injuries do pile up. Like it happens. It is a fact that it happens. And with the way especially NFC North going, it's tough. Like, you know, he had the rotten one against Chicago last year. He's been great. He's been well worth his money in that. But if there's regression there, it's a lot of money. And it's like, well, we've got another year. We're in no rush. We just wait and see what happens this year. And if he earns it, then, you know, hey, if we have to give him a more expensive deal to keep him, that's fine. But if he's still showing that there's no drop off and it's great, then you do it. But then all this counteracts with the fact that the rest of the line is we're in a lot of bother. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure we can afford to, because if Hank can't develop any of these backups this year, we're in a lot of bother. A lot of bother going forward. And if Frank continues, if his health declines in terms of his playing ability, then yeah, we're in a lot of bother. So that's why I'm very on the fence about it. But
Yeah.
I will agree, his contract has been worth every single penny, and he's been wonderful, and it's been great. But it's just we're in a weird position right now with it. Very weird position.
All right, let's move the conversation on to everybody's favorite Detroit Lion. You can't see him. He's John Cena in disguise. He's registering as eligible for this podcast. It's the sixth lineman and offensive tackle Dan Skipper. I mean, is it him or is it someone else? We'll never know. Let's just put a mask on him and see if anyone notices. $1.15 million he's getting paid this season. And of the guys not wanted to maybe take starter or even rotational reps, he's maybe the most interesting player to talk about because he does have a defined role on this team outside of the usual formation. So, Ant, where do you go with Dan? Because he's a great meme, and we poke fun at the expense of him for what happened late on in the season, but he's not a good tackle.
Yeah. See, I've given a lot of tap to the backup tackles over the years, the like of him and Nelson and all this, but it's tough because compared to Matt Nelson, he's Penei Sewell. Like he is, but
Really?
compared to Matt Nelson, he is. So well, I guess anybody is compared to Matt Nelson, but you want to, yeah. For a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, he cannot be your first tackle off the bench, which basically he is at this moment in time. That is an indictment on the depth of your line. And the depth of the line has been an issue now for years. We've just been so lucky that we've been quite healthy. So if you're telling me that Skip was to be like the fourth guy, like the guy you bring in for bring him in for special packages, bring him in for triple A's. There's a place for him here. It's just not at the level of responsibility where he's at now. It's like he's too high up the roster. It's not his fault, but you know what? I've grown fond of the big lug, and he's part of the ball club, and I don't know. I just get this little thing about I would like him to be here, but at the correct position on the depth chart. That would be my thing with him.
It's so hard because of the number of people must make the roster. It gives a very limited number of roles up for grabs on the offensive line. Ash, where are you putting the Skipmeister?
Keep with a view to potentially be a mixture, because for me, he is not the first tackle off the bench. According to reports in camp, that'll be Sourced. So because if according to Riz, I think it was week 2 of camp, Sourced took snaps everywhere on the line except for center. I think the team has developed, or at least have trust in Sourced to be that if one of the tackles goes down, he subs in. If Decker goes down, slide Penei to left tackle, put Sourced in at right. Penei goes down, put Sourced in at right. I think Sourced going to be one of the first guys off the bench, which then, pushes Skip down to that second one up and means we can do more stuff like, put him in as the 6th offensive line like we used to do with Matt Nelson. Use him on special teams as one of those guys. So that makes it a lot more palatable to keep him. And honestly, looking at our list of O-line, as we've said, at tackle, it's basically him, Sourced, and Galvin. And he's the one that's been there, done it in the league. Like Sourced's done it a tiny bit, but this is a second-year guy coming from William and Mary. And not to be harsh on Sourced, but the stuff we saw from him last year, admittedly, it was way too soon for him to be played, but because of what happened, he had to. It's good to have someone who you know what you're going to get from it. Yeah, he's not going to be Trent Williams or Penei Sewell or hell, even like Alaric Jackson from the Rams. but you know what you're going to get from him and you can trust him. And he's played guard as well. So if you have injuries at guard, you can slide him in there. So yeah, he's a definite keeper, sort of O-line 7-8.
I have put down on our sheet what you have both said. I would cut Dan Skipper. And the reason is that I don't have enough spots for him. I've got to offensive lineman 10 and he's not in it. And I'm not keeping 11. So it's tough, but there's too many mouths to feed. There's too many people you must keep. You're counting up now, Ash. I can see what you're looking for.
Yeah.
This is probably going to spoil the rest of the segment for my picks for this, but you've got the starting 5 of Decker, Glasgow, Ragnar, Zeitler, Saul. That's 5.
Yeah.
Saulsdal is a must. That's 6. Manu is a must. That's 7. Mahogany is a must. That's 8. I am keeping a specialist centre as a backup because I do not want Glasgow coming inside if Ragnar goes down for injury. So whether you keep Clemens or Aguakun or any of those guys, Brian Hudson, one of those is going to make it, I think. And then when it comes to offensive lineman 10, and I do think they'll keep 10, I actually have our Seeker ahead of Dan. I just do. I think, and the thing is, if you hear about the backups that have actually really impressed this spring, it's none of these people that I've even mentioned yet. It's Natane Muti who's the one who's really impressed. So not only does he not fit in my 10, but he might not even be 11. And can any of the people I've listed play that 6th offensive lineman? I'm not convinced. Are we going to play it? You kind of don't know where we're going to go with this. It's nice to have in the bag. I think Saulsdal could do it. I think Manu could do it. Like, if you want to train him to do something this year, be a bulldozer run into that guy could be something he could do. So, like,
maybe, but if
we're protesting here, this is a protest. You are going against the democratic views of me and Ash here. So this is an official protest.
I started what I was saying with I put down what you both said.
You guys have said, I know, and so
which is cut.
No,
we
isn't.
didn't say cut. No, you said
I didn't put cut. I've put keep cut. / resign.
Resign, but Matt thinks cut. My not pushback is
I'm not that dictator. Why do you think
you're not
I'm
a dictator?
King
I know.
Jong-un?
I can verify you're not a dictator. For me, it comes down to 2 things. I agree with most of those keeps. Obviously, Mahogany is, if you've read my article, you know how much I think of Mahogany. Manu is a keep just because we know if we cut him, the Eagles are going to pick him up and turn him into Jordan Marlar to 2.0. And when Lane Johnson retires, they'll just slide him in there. But the reports from camp was Manu, as much as he's a big human, he was having issues even in run blocking. So there was that whole thing where he was just completely missing where to put his hands in run block. And then, Hank took him aside, got him to do this one thing, and the next rep he came in, he absolutely bulldozed someone. But for the most part, it seems that those moments are few and far between. And are you really going to trust someone who is such a wild card at that 6th offensive line spot? I don't know. And the other thing is, I agree we need to keep a specialist center, but for those guys that you've listed, all those UDFAs, one of them's going to sneak through to the practice squad. So for me, it is we keep one of them or 2 of them on the practice squad, and then you keep Skipper. And if the injury happens to Fragnout in the game, you can then slide Glasgow across, put Mahogany in at either left or right, depending. And then if you need to then have someone long term, you elevate that. So for me, I'm going to say Hudson because he's the guy that I personally like the most. You then elevate Hudson from the practice squad. So that's probably the way around it. Like, I agree with everyone else. It's just that specialist centre because I think we can get 1 or 2 of them through to the practice squad, and that alleviates the need to keep them on the 53.
Manu should not be a guaranteed slot on this team, by the way. I'm just going to say that.
He should.
I know we've spent a pick on him, but he should not be guaranteed on this team. He is way too raw to be chucking away genuine potential talent for if he doesn't do it. So I do not include Manu in a top 9 or 10 just yet. Like, it was a risk pick from the Lions, and sometimes it doesn't work. So, like, guy's got to do well, and he's got to show out well in preseason if he wants to stay here.
I think there's no doubt that Manu, if it was based on the top guys, would not make it 100%. The thing is, if we know the Lions scouts do their homework, we know that Brad Holmes doesn't just chuck picks away. If he's picked Manu, it's because he knows that the curve is going to be long and will take years. If his place is based on what he does in this training camp, that means that the pick was bad at its core, and I just kind of don't believe that the Lions are going to burn not just that pick, but trade up for that pick. It would scream bad process.
Yeah, but isn't it even worse to keep him if he's just not there? Because Sorsdal is our long-term project there. Like, there are only so many of these day 3 long-term picks you can stash on a 53. And, Sorsdal's not there yet. Like, he wasn't last year, and he's got to prove himself this year, no matter how well he does in the off-season. So, you're talking 9, 10 offensive linemen, and 1/5 of them are day 3 picks that are raw as fuck. Like, that's just not sustainable.
No, you're right.
Going forward.
Right. I agree.
And you've invested in Mahogany. Like, you take Mahogany 100%, but again, he's another day 3 pick who you've got to train, who's going to take time. And you guys are talking about backup centers. Well, Jesus, these backup centers are even worse in terms of where they're at now than these 3 guys are. So you're going to tell me you're going to take 4 guys on your 10 who are completely and utterly as raw, as a blue piece of beef. That is not good coaching in a year we need to be, well, not need to be, but in a year where we are expecting to make a legitimate assault on a Super Bowl. Somewhere there has to be a cut come, and if it means one of these guys you have to part with them early, or you have to risk putting them through waivers, then so be it. But you've made this pick, or you've made the Manu pick already with Sorsdal. You've got to be careful, because this could bite us. If we get a few early injuries and all the good depth's gone, and we have to start pushing these guys up early, then our season can unravel very quickly. So you've got to be careful.
Yeah, I agree. Like with Manu, and it is kind of spoilers from my article, but I said as much. The best case scenario for him is not seeing him this year unless it's on like special teams as like the field goal unit. But I think the reason we've made that pick, despite having Sorsdal, is because Sorsdal, as much as he could turn out to be a good tackle, he's a very low ceiling tackle. He's never going to be like a Trent Williams or Saul or anything. He could turn out to be a solid tackle, but he doesn't have that upside. And I think the team feels with Hank around and with Penne and that, with the right kind of coaching, Manu could turn out to be that. He has the athletic tools for it, he has the frame for it. It's just getting that technique down. So I think we've got Sorsdal there as the sort of high floor, low ceiling developmental project. Manu is you're swinging for the fences. Let's see if we can get a home run here. It could absolutely flame out. And that's why my low comparison for him was the tackle that the Titans took out of Maryland last year, who the more they played him, he got worse and worse. That could really turn out to Manu, and he could be out of the league in 2 years. But he also could turn to be the next Jordan Mailata, Trent Williams, who's an absolute bulldozer in the run game and is a pretty good pass blocker because it's so hard to get around him. He has such good power that unless you're a really good speed rusher like James Houston, you're not going to get past him.
I think this is...
that's fine, but then you've got to dump Sorsdal. Like, you can't take them both if there's going to be that. Then again, if you're taking several interior guys who are just as raw as them, you can't do it. Like, if you take Manu, fine, but then someone else has got to go. Sorsdal's on, someone's got to go. If Manu's on, somebody's got to go. If we take some really unknown center with it, someone's got to go, because you can't have 4 of them. That's the point here. Somebody, somewhere, we're going to have to eat crow somewhere with somebody.
For me, I think it is that, like the center, as I said. So it's basically my 10 is the same as Matt's, except for instead of Brian Hudson or that, it is Skipper.
Yeah, that's it. So that's coming back to the Skip conversation here. It's you're not assuming Sorsdal as sixth man and taking Manu as well. That's where Skipper fits on the roster.
I think potentially this is the most interesting conversation in the entire off-season when it comes to the depth of this team. The depth is clearly lacking. And in some ways, I think Ant made a great argument for cutting all of them, in terms of they're all not good enough. But in some ways, you know, well, I guess we probably do have enough money to get some vets on there, considering how much Zeitler is being paid right now for we're going all in on this season, but it's not really the best way of doing things, so it's not something realistically that they're going to do, but...
And this goes back to the whole conversation with Hank. It's like, he's not developed a day 3 guy yet, and you're going to put 4 on your roster. That's asking a lot. Because in 12 months, yeah, the lowest one is Jonah, and Jonah's around 3 pick, and generally, you could, if you're top 100 lineman, you can be good within a year or two. Like, you can be. With all these other guys, it's stash and draft and develop, but we are yet to see someone develop yet. Like, if Sorsdal was starting this year, I'd be like, you know what, actually, and it was never going to happen, but I don't mind maybe taking a few more raw guys, because I'm a lot more comfy with the fact that they might be in there sooner rather than later. But we need bona fide NFL experience depth on this line because we have just gotten away way too much with it. Penne has been immaculate. Frank is playing through some of the worst pain you can imagine. You know, Taylor is battling his ass off all the time, but all it takes is a couple of these guys to... And Zeitler's 36. He's not going to stay healthy forever. And... there's just too much. You've got an older O-line right now. You've got to have some guys in behind them who are ready to compete this year. You cannot take 4 of them like this and just plug them in, because it's not going to work. We saw it with Sorsdal last year. So somebody somewhere has got to go.
And this conversation gets even more interesting if you said that they weren't going to keep 10, they were going to keep 9. Because that's a possibility. And then what do you do? Like, it gets even harder. Because with the change in the rules, like... for the special teams, it is possible that you want to keep one more somewhere else, and you don't want to take that from anywhere else but the offensive line. Because you could run with 8, really, but I think 9 is more realistic, and 10 is where I would be, but 9 is definitely a possibility, and then who knows?
And the trouble we have is, like, we've invested picks in our guys, though, like Sorsdal and Manu and Mahogany. We've invested draft picks in them. We can't just sort of, well, we can, but just letting them wander into free agency and risking losing them to sneak them through to the practice squad is a highly risky scenario. But then you're left with the point where you've got to take your starting 5 and all them. And then you're left with 1, maybe 2 spots, and you're struggling badly. So, like,
can I say it to you this way then? You're right on the centres. They'll all get through waivers, so we'll be able to put them on the practice squad. Dan Skipper would also get through waivers.
I don't think he would. Because you look at because what's the issue with the NFL right now? Lack of O-line depth.
No one's signing him to be a tackle, though. He's not good.
He could start for the Giants.
Honestly, let me get it up, because I was looking at it earlier because of the whole Taylor. But you said about Taylor Decker being top 50 left tackle. I was looking at it.
But you are also. Sorry, Ash. The league values Dan's opinion on players and Brad's opinion on players. That is also something we take. Like, players that Detroit covet now and keep around for a reason. Teams are going to start asking why, and they're going to start going, well, they've let him go. Let's get him in, see what he's about, and that's all it takes. And for as much as we might say Skip has a low floor and doesn't do so much, the fact is, integrated into the system, integrated into packages. He has a role to play on this team now. Manu doesn't. Sorsdal doesn't. Mahogany might not, even though I think he does. But again, you've got to get the balance of this team right. We can't just take all these raw day 3 draft picks with us behind a top 5, which is getting on in age and has injury concerns. You cannot do this. 4 of them have legitimate bona fide concerns about injury or age. And that's the problem here. You know, and if we're in a position where one of them goes down and we've got to start panic buying in season, trying to bring in mid vets on overinflated contracts to try and fill these gaps up, again, our season's going to fall apart very quickly. It relies on the offensive line. You know, that's why we need our Sheikah in there. We need guys like this who can come in and cover but picking Manu has really screwed us in terms of all these day 3 picks we want to take with us, which makes me think they're going to take more O-linemen so that they can put the NFL talent in. They can have 3 tiers. You can have the starting 5. You can have the mid NFL vets behind them, which there need to be some, and then you've got all these raw draft picks that you don't want to risk losing in free agency. You're going to have to take more of them.
Yeah, and then to sort of come back to my thing with the depth chart, who do you prefer, Dan Skipper or Matt Nelson?
Skipper.
Matt Nelson is currently slated to be Giants' first man off the bench at offensive tackle. If we cut
I told you he could be a starter for the Giants.
Exactly. If you cut Skipper, Giants are probably going to pick him up. Hell, the Chargers are, because they're currently their slated backup tackle to Slater is a guy called Foster Sarella, even I've never heard of. You look at the depth in the league, yeah, there's a load of good starting offensive linemen. When you start getting to that second level, like hell, Kendall Lamb, you remember him? He's currently slated to be the second backup for the Dolphins behind Patrick Poole. So he might even be the first going into the season. While
Patrick Poole's a rookie.
The only reason that I thought that Skipper would get through is that he was on the practice squad last year, which means by definition he got through. So I have history on my side in terms of demonstrating that has happened. But I will take it as read, and I think maybe we've spent long enough on the Skipper conversation, which I have to admit I did not think would be the longest part of this show.
Oh, that's coming later when we have to discuss the second to last person on the list.
Oh, fuck you.
It's a bit rude.
Yeah, but when you start talking about the guy, you'll see why I've reacted that way, and you know exactly why I've reacted that way. I can see it on your face. No,
Call him. Don't look at me. I'm innocent. I'm pure gold, flashy innocent here.
For now, we'll move on on the offensive line to the guy who's been backup centre all off season, the versatile offensive lineman Michael Neese, $795,000 exclusive rights free agent. He hasn't accrued enough league seasons to be a vested vet, so we control his destiny. And where does Neese stack with you? Because he didn't get listed in any of our groups just then, but given where he's been repping in the spring, I think he's got a shot.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's repping there because we've got nobody else. Like, you know, it's like having Messi as his striker and then 2 League 2 strikers behind him. The guy who's trending above him on the depth chart maybe isn't necessarily that, you know, Neese doesn't have that much experience. And again, I look at how this team is built and the offensive line. I'm sorry, we have to go back to the conversation again. We got 5 starters and we got a lot of rookies we've invested draft picks in. So we need those last few spots are going to be really critical because we need to keep the draft picks if we want to make sure these picks work out for us. And we need to keep the first 5. But we've got to have some vets on here somewhere, some vets who've been there and done that. So out of the rest of these guys, you need to be looking at guys who've got the NFL experience who can come in and cover holes for us if we need to. And Neese doesn't fill that. Like the thing it's going for him is the position. The center's the wild card position. We've got to take somebody after Frank. And do they believe it's going to be someone who they can hybrid on that line? I know Dion was talking about putting Mahogany there. I don't like that. I know why he does, because the build and his skill set and where he comes from. I believe that Mahogany could do a job at center if he wants to, but yeah, this is the really tough one. But for me, he just doesn't have the level of experience, and he's not part of the starting 5, and he's not part of the future core. So for me, anyone who's not part of the 5 or the future core is gone if they don't have NFL experience.
Ash?
Yeah, he's one of them that's like what I said earlier with kind of like Kennedy and that. He's a veteran guy who you can cut probably get through to the practice squad because, yeah, he's bounced around. He's played for the Bears, he's played for Tampa, and then obviously we picked him up last season and we elevated him once the active roster just on the 30th of October. So that was a Halloween treat for us. But yeah, because he does have a tiny bit of NFL experience, you probably want to keep him around. The team obviously likes him enough to give him a futures deal. But at the same time, yeah, he's not on my 10 that I'm taking to the 53. And honestly, if he does get picked up on waivers by another team, I'm not too unhappy because, as we said, there's a load of these guys here that are all in the same bracket, and there's ones I value a lot more than I value Nisha.
Yeah, I'm with you guys exactly. So I won't labour the point. Moving on, Connor Galvin, exclusive rights free agent, same money, tackle out of Baylor, last season undrafted, $795,000. Ash, Galvin.
Again, another cut and practice squad guy. We liked him enough to keep him around after getting him last year as a UDFA. And honestly, it pains me because obviously Manu is a draft pick this year. If we really need to start a young tackle because both Decker and Saul have gone down, touch wood, that never happens and all that. God, I'm not trying to put in the universe. But I'd rather start Galvin than I would start Manu right now.
See, Galvin would be the one I'd want to back up at left tackle for me, but then I'm being entirely hypocritical to the point I've just made before. Is Galvin a long-term part of the future here? Again, this is more I have an emotional investment in. I like him as a guy, and I think he could be good for this team. I think the schemes, what he's played before, would work for this team, but he doesn't have the experience. I'm taking him, and again, 4 day 3 draft picks with me. That's half my allocation. I would love to sneak him through to the practice squad. I think he would actually. I would just sneak him through to the practice squad and elevate him if one of the tackles goes down. Like I'd elevate him and play him over Manu, even if you keep Manu on the 53. Like that would be the situation I'd be in with him, and I'd exhaust that. And then if it got to the point where I had to keep bringing him up and he looked good, then like Manu would be in danger.
All right. Kevin Zeitler now, Ant, you've already shown your hands, but it sounds like you just want him to play out his deal and then we'll transition.
Yeah, he's a 1 year guy. In an ideal world, Christian Mahogany develops this year
at Boston College, and knowing how good they are at developing offensive linemen, I know, according to Dr. Liao, Mahogany's only going to be a rookie contract guy because of stuff. That means you still get 3 years of a very, very good guard. Like Mahogany, at worst, he's going to be a top 32 right guard in this league, and I will keep him at right. I'll have him at right guard where Zeitler is, because of, at least right now, because of the way our scheme is, you want your right guard to be a good power blocker and your left guard to be a good finesse blocker, because they're usually the one that's pulling. Glasgow is a better finesse blocker, so you keep him at left if he's still here, and you put Mahogany in at right, and the offensive line just keeps churning.
Definitely keep, obviously. But then I'd have an open mind. I think the thing with Mahogany and his injury worries, I know what Dr. Liao said. My concern is what happens if it's worse than that. So clearly there was enough teams there that saw how good he was in college and didn't think he was worth a shot before the middle of the 6th or whenever we picked. So it was late in the 6th, wasn't it? I mean, I can't remember. But
you can't remember when our friend Ryan picked him.
No, I can't. It was too long ago. I think there's a risk, and I'm very high on what Mahogany could do. I think there's a risk Mahogany never plays a snap. I think that's the only conclusion that you can draw from what all the other NFL teams did in the draft, because by the tape, he's like a second-round guy.
But we see guys like this fall every year, unexpectedly.
That's very true.
And injuries are like... It was a serious injury. But again, he played last year and he was great. But teams just look at the injury records and they're like, meh. And plus, he's just a guard, which teams also like for some reason don't care. But I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be. He's gonna be great. He's gonna be fine. You do want to keep him. You've got stupidly good value for him there. I'm just thinking, like in the spirit of, like how all the Premier League teams are cheating at the minute with their transfers and stuff like that. I wonder, could we not engage in a little bit of skullduggery? Can we put guys on IR and keep them? Can we like fake injure some of these guys, put them on IR so we can keep more of them and then revert them to the practice squad?
What you're saying is we need to hire Roy Keane for a week.
Can
No. I know
can the rules be bent where we can?
Yes.
Sorry, the rules have changed now where you don't have to do the whole wait a day to then put them on IR.
Yeah.
So that could play a role. But again, I think with the IR rules, you have to give them you do have to give them like, oh yeah, this is the reason we'll put him on this unless.
But considering Mahogany's fallen because of injury-related issues and the fact that he's not been at camp at all, that would seem to work.
We can pay off a doctor for a favourable or unfavourable prognosis and just say, well, look, we want to keep him. But...
It wouldn't be any worse than Deflategate.
Exactly. On IR, and then, oh, look, magically he's ready for the season. We didn't know about this, but he's on our practice squad nice and safe and we can protect him now. Could we engage in some sneaky stuff here and do it that way? I'm sure we could bend the rules. And Roger Goodell, if you're watching this podcast, just forget everything I've just said. We're not doing this, but we are.
Right. Fair. Okay, so we'll move it on to Natane Muti, guards, $1.055 million deal. Maybe the biggest riser in camp in terms of the backup offensive lineman. Had a stellar spring so far, but as you say, Anne, when you're not in pads, it don't mean shit.
No, and this is the offensive line we're talking about. Like more than anything, if you're a trench player, pads mean more than pretty much anybody because you've got to be stronger, you've got to be more technically apt, and you can't figure this out until you're locking up with somebody on the other side, and it means for real. And again, like just so many of these guys are falling into that crack of they're not the long-term future and they're not the now, and we don't have enough places to keep the grey. So yeah, it's just another one who falls into this personally for me.
For me, he is. If let's say the team theoretically does do the whole IR thing, Muti is the one I'm keeping because this is a guy who has played 22 games in the NFL over his career. Admittedly, only started 4 of them, but he has he had a whole so most of those came in his first 2 years in Denver. He's also the only offensive lineman we've got on the roster that's also recorded a tackle. So he's got special teams value, maybe. Joking, but he does fall into that sort of middle bracket that Ant mentioned earlier, that he has NFL experience, and with him pressing in camp, maybe is climbing his way up the sort of roster rankings. I know people that have read Jeremy's article today about the surprise guy to maybe make the 53. He said Muti, and I could really see it. It's just, as I said, because we've invested in Sorsdal, Mahogany, and Manu. He maybe unfairly has been pushed down the pecking order, but if he shows that in preseason, yeah, he could stick around, at least maybe on the practice squad if we can sneak him through. But again, as we mentioned earlier with Skipper, that might not be possible because offensive line needy teams are out there. Someone might pick him up to be their first guy off the bench at guard because, again, offensive line depth is not the greatest around the league right now. But he is firmly in that sort of offensive lineman 11, 12 right now, and with preseason could really push to be on the 53.
I really don't remember if I threw that to you. I did, didn't I, before? Sorry.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so the next one up for Ash then is Matt Farniok. He's been around a little while for the Lions. Restricted free agent, $985,000. What do you think?
He's another one of those guys. It seems there's quite a lot of these guys that just cut and see if you get from to the practice squad. But he's, again, like Muti, he's a guy who's got some proper NFL experience. He's played 19 games in his career and started 2. And the 2 games started was in 2022 with Dallas. but the year before that, he appeared in 12 games for them. And I take about what I said about Muti. Farniak's also got a tackle. So there's two guys. But again, he's one of those that you see if you can get through to the practice squad, and you can call him up if you need someone to come up from injury. He's not good enough to maybe push Mahogany, and that for me, unlike Muti, who has been shown out in camp, Farniak has been a bit down sort of the reports and that. So he's one of them guys. Cut him. If you get through to the practice squad, great. If not, hope the team that picks him up gets proper use out of him.
And
no, not for me.
yeah, me too. And what about Coyote Awashika? Started games for the Lions, ended up on the practice squad at the start of last year, got elevated, then made the main roster, played some significant time, didn't look too bad doing it. If I'm right, it's the second consecutive season of playing some reps for the Lions, and he's only on 705 grand. So, what do you think about Awashika? Because there were some not so great moments as well for him.
Yeah, I mean, Awashika's kind of gone like he's been the Ode Abushi experiment for me. I didn't like him at all to start with, but over time, the more he was here, the more I began to like him and what he brought to the team. He's played in this system. He's played significant reps in this system. I would trust him to come in and fill a gap for at least a while. Like, if he's going to be starting a full season, then I'd be like, not sure, but like no backup lineman comes into the league. No one wants their backup to play a full season. But as far as the depth goes, he falls in that nice little category in the middle where he is an experienced vet who I trust, who's a good bridge between the starters and the green rookies. So I keep him.
I'm with you. Ash, are you there?
Yeah, again, kind of like what we just discussed with Muti and Farniak. This is a guy who's played 26 games in the league, and last year played in 15 and started 3 for us. I think all 5 games that he started in his career have been for us over the past 2 seasons. So he, out them, is the most likely to stick around because the team knows him. Like, if we do keep 10 and we do cut one of the sort of the lower guys, and because we want to keep some of the experience, he's probably the top of this because he's got that familiarity with us, like Skipper. But at the same time, he's been here 2 seasons now. He's been an okayish backup. He did improve a bit last year, playing a bit more at guard when he played tackle for Philadelphia in 2021. But we seemingly want to upgrade on him because we've brought in Farniak, we've brought in Muti, we've obviously drafted Mahogany, we've signed all these UDFA centres as well. It seems that the team knows what they want from that can get for him, but want to improve. So if those other players show more in pre-season, he could easily get cut, be put in the practice squad, or even just be cut and let someone else pick him up.
His roster spot depends on how much Sawsdall has developed. If Sawsdall has developed into a guy they trust, then our Seeker is not long for the roster, frankly, because I don't think you need 2 of those guys. But if they're not confident in Sawsdall quite yet, then he's a must keep. So, it is what it is with him, but I would be leaning on keeping him and seeing what happens. We'll move over to the defense, and we have a lot more people taking significant reps here. So we're going to start with the most highly paid of the defensive line on this list, which is Marcus Davenport here on a 1-year, $6.5 million deal signed in the offseason. So clearly no thoughts of re-signing him or trading him at this point in time unless something changes. But what's the prognosis on him and his career for you guys? Ant, let's start with you.
So, if you can forgive me here, I'm going to lump him and Kaminsky into this because it's the same.
Sure, let me just say Kaminsky's AAV then. So Kaminsky, $4.25 million as well.
So yeah, I'm going to lump these into. This is my feeling on the edge room going into next year. And Hutch is out of this conversation, right? Like, Hutch is not involved. He's to the side. He's good. For Davenport, for Kamish, for Houston, for Pascal, This is very simple. If you do not play your ass off this year and start developing, the lot of you are gone. I am cleaning that entire room out in 12 months if not one of them can step up opposite Hutch and give him something to work with. Davenport, we know can do it at the NFL level. That's obviously why we've bought him here. We've been able to get him maybe a little bit cheaper than what he would be, but he's had his injury issues, he's had his inconsistency issues, and the same for Houston and Pascal and Kamish. We know they can do it. If this room is healthy and they're playing well, I think we got a damn good edge room. But I'm sick and tired of someone not standing up opposite Hutch and doing this. So as far as Kamish goes, as far as Davenport goes, if you don't show up this year, get out. You're gone. I am just going to start from ground zero around Hutch in the edge room next year and spend everything I have fixing it. That's as simple as it is for me. You've got to ball out or you're gone.
Ash?
I'll tackle them together like Ant did, but I actually have a slightly different take. Davenport, yeah, it's keep and then see how things go at the end of the season, and then you either resign him or if he's not good enough, you wave goodbye. But with Kamish, this is going to sound weird, but I promise there is an explanation for it. Resign now. In the same way we re-signed Charles Harris and Romeo Crara last year, if he takes a pay cut, great. If not, honestly, we could cut him because the price tag compared to the role he's going to play, is it worth it? I don't know. So if he takes a pay cut like Crara and Harris did, he's a keep around under 53. But if he doesn't, because of Pascal, because of the potential of Levi and Enrique and Meki Wingo taking roles at that big DA spot that Kamish plays, you could easily replace the snaps he takes up with them and save yourself a bit of money. So it's one of them where I'd resign. If we could resign him with a pay cut, great. If not, wave goodbye and hope someone else picks you up because of the stuff you've put on tape with us the past season and a half or so.
It's funny, we're going 3 different ways on Kaminsky, so I would cut him. I think even with... I don't see him taking the sort of pay cut I would want to keep him around. That's where I'm at with him, and it may seem harsh, but he's been a great servant to us. I think we have enough depth that will live without him at his price tag. So I think that's just it. He's been great, but he deserves to be a starter. And there are teams that could use him. And, I mean, fine. We haven't used the designation before, and we probably won't use it for the rest of the show. Trade. He's a great trade candidate. Like, someone might give a 6th round pick for him. Why not? He's good level, low-end starter caliber. So, yes, I'm putting it in. I'm putting it in. That's what she said. Resign / cut / trade. That's where I'm at. It could be anything with him. I mean, the thing is, any which way you go with him is kind of okay. Like, there's no bad decision with Kamish. If you keep him around long term, it's like, well, you can't hate that because he's been a good yet unremarkable player. If you play him out this season, let him go, well, that's fine, you know, whatever. If you cut him, well, it's a big saving on the salary caps, that's fine. If you trade him, well, great, we got some capital for him, fantastic. There's, like, no bad decisions here, so fine. Here's an interesting one, though, which is Levi Onwuzurike. I've not bolded him as a person who's going to take significant reps, and I think that has to be the case considering what's happened the last few years with him. But he has certainly had an encouraging spring, so shall we say. Dan Campbell is a no BS type of guy, and I know that we haven't been playing in pads, but I will say that's more important for the offensive line than it is for the defensive line, which is potentially a bit more about technique than, well, it's something you can show before contact, whereas offensive line really is reacting to the person in front of you, and you just kind of don't have that without being in pads. So I would say I'm buying in a little bit more to the hype with Levi, but as a former 2nd round pick who's barely played, the bar was low. Ash, where are we with Levi?
He is, right now for me, a keep and see how things go at the end of the season. I'm probably leaning that it will be a keep and then free agency next season kind of thing, because we haven't really seen anything from him, and I think the team is preparing for losing him as that backup pre-tech with the Meki Wingo drafting this season. But staying stuff in camp, and with how many injuries you get on the defensive line because of the high impact nature of it, and because he's been lumped in with Wingo, Pascal, and Kamish supposedly at that big DE role, he probably is making the 53 right now. So keep with a view to see how things go at the end of the season, whether you sign for veteran minimum or you let him hit free agency and seek his fortune elsewhere.
And see, this is tough. It's really tough with Levi because, again, I really like him, and I still think there's something there to be had with him. I mean, in an ideal world, you give him this year to see what he can do. Because if he was somehow able to turn it round, then there would probably not be a player on this entire roster, even the likes of Amon-Ra and Penne, who you could say epitomizes the grit stuff more than him and what he's overcoming. Like that injury alone, spinal fusion, that's a nightmare for a defensive lineman. If he somehow overcomes that, then you want to go with it. But then at the same time, again, I have been a rank hypocrite because all those years I said we needed to can off Deshaun Hand because he just could not get over his injuries, and we were wasting a spot on him year in, year out in the hope that he could become what we knew he could become. This is like exactly where we're at now. We know what he can be, but deep down in our heart of hearts, I think we know the ship has sailed. So I think he makes the 53. I don't like Meki Wingo. If it's a straight choice between them two, I'm still taking Levi. I don't think I'm losing out long-term anything with Wingo, but if he was to be cut as well, I wouldn't be surprised. But I would keep him, give him one last chance, because he's a second-round pick. You could still get that version of a player.
I think in the salary cap era, and where the cap very much is real for the teams that mismanage it, having cost control is really important. And so when it comes to someone like Wingo, I think the most important aspect between Wingo and Levi is how long Wingo has to go on his contract. It's cutthroat, but I think it's effective. You may be right with Wingo. I don't know what to think of him at all. But if he can be the lowest guy in the rotation, taking 5 to 10% of snaps at 700 grand, great. Like, that's fine by me. But on Levi, my hope is higher for him than it is with Hand. And I don't really know why, but we're kind of in the same place, because at this position in Hand's career, I seem to remember that Hand had a little bit of time towards the end of his rookie contract where he had stayed healthy.
It was at the start.
Oh, was it?
It's a really good rookie season. Second half of his rookie season, really good, and then just injury.
Okay. For some reason, I remember the injury, but then I thought he had a small period where he was healthy for a time and we were hopeful again. I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering. Anyway, I'm keeping the faith with him. I definitely think he makes the 53 because his upside is just too high to let go. And I would consider re-signing him at the end of that. I really genuinely would. I don't think, no matter how he plays this season and where he's going to be in the rotation, that his re-signing would cost a huge amount of money. But I think he would appreciate the faith, considering what's happened in his career. He seems like a humble guy. And I don't know, I can just see it happen. Him kind of coming back like a phoenix from the flames, you know? That's my feeling with him. Anyway, let's talk about the most important person potentially on this list, which is Lions darling, Twinkle Toes himself, Aleem McNeil. He's counting against the cap for his Lions AAV, at least, maybe not this season, but the total AAV, $1.282 million. So maybe the best bargain the Lions have had in some time apart from Amon-Ra and Brown. And he came off a year where he was maybe a top 10 defensive tackle in the NFL last season. He had a big glow up. And the Lions are convinced that there's going to be room to grow for him. So What are we doing with Aleem McNeil? Because what you would do and what they are seemingly doing seems a bit different, because it feels like a no-brainer to me, Ash.
Yeah, exactly. We should have re-signed him way earlier than this. Around that same period, we had Penne, Amon Ra, and Goff signed. We should have had Aleem in there done, because he's an ascending player in the league, and D tackle is becoming more and more of a premium position. Look at the money that Chris Jones is getting, that Aaron Donald got when he was playing. DT is becoming more and more important, and Aleem is one of the rising stars of that as a young guy. He's gone from being a third round pick and on nose tackle to being an absolute beast on the interior, to the point where, yeah, I would. If you said it comes up on my phone in 5 minutes' time, we resign him to a 4-year deal at like 18, 19, 20 million, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't.
I would be absolutely in dreamland. I thought you were going to say 100 mil for 4 years then.
Honestly, that wouldn't have surprised me either. We should have signed him, because it's going to get more and more expensive the longer we leave it, to a point where, for me, it would be re-sign. But I really think the team is going keep and tag, and that's going to be painful, because he's someone I want here for the long term. But I can see how the team is playing it. But just don't take my word for it. We need to speak to Lee McNeil's number one fan on the panel, I think.
Yeah, you obviously what they're going to do is different, but this is our show. We're talking about what we do. So you sign Aleem tomorrow and you still do it. 3 years ago, when we did his review and his college stuff, uttered the phrase, he's going to be our Kenny Clark. Well, Kenny Clark is renegotiating his deal right now. He's on 4 years, 70 million, and he's about to renegotiate his deal, and that's going to go up. You let more deals like this set the market, and then the money is going to get to the point where it might drive him out what they believe is acceptable value. It's not true. Aleem is worth a lot. I would pay Aleem a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money, to have a great D tackle in this league. You need. I know we've got Reader, but like Reader's going to be here for the next few years, but Aleem's going to be here for the next 2 contracts. Hopefully, like he's going to be the guy. He's going to be our Aaron Donald. I mean, not in this way, but you know what I mean. He's going to be a lifer for us. He's going to be a guy who's consistent, who's great on our interior, makes everything flow easier on the defense, and he's the long-term fit here. So you just pay him. Don't mess him around with a tag. Like he's done what he needs to. We said it was going to take a while. It takes time for DTs. You don't see first-year All-Pro DTs in this league. At least I don't think you do very often. And it's taken time. But in year 3, you've seen the pass rush ability come to him, which we knew he had, just needed to develop. You've seen how good our run defense is. Like he means everything to this defense, and it's the unsexy position. No one sees it. Got to pay him. Pay him, pay him, pay him. There is no option B, option C here. There is option A, which is pay him.
I agree, and I've just put in the live chat right now, if you're on the audio show, the live chat replay will be available to our rookie review of Aleem McNeil, because it's still relevant and it's still worth watching, so go and check that out. I think it was me, Ant, and Steve looking at him at that time. Everyone's right. We sign him right now. Like, as long as you can, as much money as you want. I kind of don't care at this point. Just don't think about it. Meet his demands. Get him on the team for next year. And you know what? Front load it a bit. If you want to make it a 5-year deal with 3 years guaranteed in the salary but a low bonus to keep it quite averaged out over the life of the contract, so we take a good hit now, that's fine. Like, we've got the cap to do it. And frankly, we need to spend some of it. We're not actually even at the point where it's like we've got to preserve. We have to spend. So let's do it by investing in our guys, by putting some cap on there now. And if you want to make it really funky, leave it low to no bonus on signing, with a roster bonus which is going to amortize after year 1. Because then that will lower the cap hit next year, which is the first year where the cap hits will go up for all the rest of the guys we've just re-signed. You know, you can structure this in a way which is going to be really smart, but Liam McNeil's part of the future of this team, and the culture of the team is you're not going to tag someone who actually deserves a deal. So don't do it to him. That's just a shit way to treat one of the players that has been... I mean, he puts a smile on your face, doesn't he? And that's worth saying to me. Like, I enjoy watching this team for its own sake. And I like the personalities we have. I like the players that we have. They are good people. And let's not treat them like shit. The team has proven they don't want to do that. So let's just keep demonstrating it. And if it has to be 4 years, 100 million, fine. Good with it. Do it. Right. Rest of the backup players, apart from there's a couple here that were going to be interesting potentially. Carl Pico, $1.21 million. Pico. I don't care. Pico. Thank you. And what do you think?
I don't know. I don't think when you look at the makeup of this squad, I mean, you look at the edge room, that's pretty full at this point. You look at the DTs, depending on what happens with Levi and Wingo, there's maybe some opportunities there for some of these guys to get in. But again, I think Levi's going to go as they're going to try and see what they got with him the last year. Wingo's a draft pick, and they seem to like him. Like, I don't see much room for these sort of guys to make the roster. Certainly not Pico. No, not for me.
Ash?
Pico can Pico. There's no room for him, unfortunately. Bye-bye.
Agreed.
I wanted to make a peekaboo joke, but it's Pico. But so close.
Chris Smith, 795 grand, exclusive rights free agent, didn't make it last year. Ash?
Cut practice squad. We saw bits from him last pre-season, and the team liked him enough to bring him back over the other guy who then went to the Rams. And we've got Breeder and Aleem who will flex between 1 tech and 3 tech. We've got Broderick who we're trying to develop as the future starter at nose tackle. But we need someone else who can play nose on somewhere, be it on the practice squad. Smith is the best option for that. So that's why I say try and get him through waivers onto the practice squad.
And
yeah, practice squad.
All right. Same with me. Mitchell Agude, 795 grand, exclusive rights free agent, and
same. Like, I try and get through to the practice squad if I can.
Ash?
This is going to ruffle some feathers. I'm going to do what Ant did earlier with Davenport and Kaminsky and sort of bring the whole Sam position together as one. If we keep a Sam, he's the most likely.
Over Houston.
Over Houston. Houston, right. I do love him, and I love what he's done as a pass rusher. But Agude offers you more. I would, if you could keep both, I would. And then you could play Agude on base downs and run downs and that. And then, bring on Houston as a third down guy. But given, and I hate to rib on him, Houston, but given what we saw from him last year, it's now over a year removed from the time he really produced. He really needs to show out in camp to save his roster spot, which I know is spoiling our discussion in a couple of minutes' time when we discuss him, but
it's fine. You can say your piece now, and then we'll come.
So for all of I'm going to bring together. Obviously, Goudet, Betts, Houston, they're all Sam role guys for us. One of them's going to win the role in camp. Right now, according to reports, Goudet's looked the best. Of course, when pads come on and when we see the games, it could be that Houston takes his role back. But since we're asking right now, he's the one that's the cut. He's the one I'd keep if we keep the Sam. But if not, cut and practice squad. And then Houston and Betts, I don't know what's going to happen to them.
So Betts for me is cut practice squad. Aguday's cut practice squad. Houston is cut practice squad. And actually, realistically, I did say maybe there's only one player who goes on to trade, but maybe Houston is trade as well, because the way that the national media talk about Houston, it's like he's this slightly injury-plagued messiah at the edge position, and I kind of feel like there are other teams which are going to feel similarly. So I think the value to other teams for him is going to be higher than the value to us, which makes him a prime trade candidate, even if it's a pick swap or a 6th round pick or something like that. My being down on Houston isn't being down on what his ability was or what he's put on tape, which is very, very good. But the injury that he sustained, I kind of just think should be debilitating. So camp is obviously important so he can actually show it. Because if he does, fine, you don't get rid of him because he's so damn important if he can do what he did in his rookie season. But assuming that he is at best slightly restricted on who he was, when your calling card is you're exceptional at something and only that one thing, if you're restricted in that element, you ain't worth shit anymore. And it's brutal because he's a really nice bloke, but
yeah,
the deck is stacked against him and it ain't fair.
Yeah.
Tough. And your thoughts on... not sure whether you had your thoughts on bets, but Houston as well. Houston, 778,000, 787.5, and bets 795.
The bets can go to the practice squad. If you can get him there, then great. I'd like to see what he can do in pre-season, to be fair. See if he can back up some of this hype he's been garnering in off-season. But overall, we'll take him on the roster. And James I keep.
Going to be interesting to see what happens with him. It really, really is. I don't know what to put down for all of us because we all have slightly different ideas. On to the linebackers. There's two of them. The most important is the rotational starter, Derek Barnes. $1.065 million for him. He won the starting job last year, week 1, and played 2/3 of snaps at the inside linebacker position. And that's given Alex Anzalone, who had a top 10 linebacker start to the season, and Jack Campbell was a first-round pick, and Malcolm Rodriguez, who was the start of the previous season. So, he surprised a lot of people and backed it up with some really good play. But it's the last year, and we've made that investment in Jack Campbell, and we've made that investment in Alex Anzalone, so his potential to get on the field is maybe limited, Ant.
I mean, no. Campbell and Anzalone are completely different guys to him. Like, if this has been year 4, like right now, he's not earned a new contract. And I love Derek. Like, I'm one of his biggest fans out there. I think he's great, but same as we have the conversation with Iffy later, like, this is the year where you've got to show me you're really worth it long term. So I'm not doing anything before the season's over. If I've got to run the risk of losing him next year in free agent, if you tell me I'm going to pay him now and I don't know what I'm going to get, or I risk losing him and, maybe I was wrong with it, then fine, I'll wait. That's the lesser of two evils for me right now, and it'll be the same with Iffy as well. I think this part here for the rotation, I like our group. I want to keep Anzalone, Campbell, Barnes, and Rodrigo. I think for all of them, they're a good 4 for us. But Barnes has got to prove it this year. This is going to be the year. Consistency is the key. His talent's never been in question. It's the consistency and stringing together consecutive performances. I've seen the development I want from him. Now I need to see the consistency in that development, and just to see him stay healthy, continue playing all the time. There's room for all these guys on the team. So I'm waiting, but I'm very much hopeful that this time next year, he's under lock and key for a new contract.
Ash?
Yeah, it's a keep for now, but it is iffy because he was initially drafted to be the eventual starter at Mike, which kind of happened at the start of last season. But we've also drafted Jack Campbell with a first-round pick to now do that. So his real slot for taking significant reps now is him winning the Sam role, which he could do. Again, it's every single time we bring up Derek Barnes, we bring it up. Former edge rusher at Purdue. If anyone it's like, I know I said it with Agude earlier, but if anyone is going to steal the Sam role from James Houston's hands, it's going to be Barnes, because he's done it before at college, and because he's took the reps at linebacker now, he will probably be the best of the group at run defense and coverage. Don't with the whole coverage thing, just look at what he did against the Bucks in the divisional round. So he could do it. He could carve himself out a role there as the Sam and backup Mike if anything happens to Campbell. That's his best chance. But I could also see it where we let him play out this year as the backup at Mike, and then another team sees enough from him in free agency to give him the bag. We've seen it all the time with linebackers where teams think they're going to be a great fit for them, splash the cash that the team who's had them wouldn't, and they go out and either ball or fail, and that could be Barnes next year. But for right now, it is keep with as Ant said, hopefully re-sign him if he plays well, but if not, let another team try a chance with him.
I'm surprised I'm the most bullish here on Derek Barnes, but I am. And I think that my answer here will surprise you when you know how I feel about Levi and what my answer will be with him. Barnes has shown me enough, because he did it for a full season. And I think I saw enough flashes of him early in his career that it gave me confidence he'd get there. And then last year gave me the confirmation I was looking for. I don't see regression being a thing with him. I see injury-related issues being a thing for him. But it's never been a concern in his career before. I'm not going to bank on injury concerns being a worry now. He's never going to be cheaper. And I actually do like the idea of having 3 linebackers in a rotation. It's a physically demanding job. And I mean, I could see these 3 guys being our starting in the rotation linebackers for the next 5 years together. Why not? Anzalone is not so old that he couldn't do it into his age 33, 34 season. So let's lock them all up and put them just together as a trio and say, you are all working together. I would be happy to give Barnes a 2-year extension to make it a 3-year deal at this point. He already had shown me enough flashes to think he might get there, and then he did it for 17 games. That's enough of a sample size for me.
Yeah, like when I said earlier, I don't think it's like, oh, you know what, you skipped Neiman. How rude.
No. I was dealing with the most important player out of those 2 first.
It's because it's gone down to Davis, and I'm like, poor Ben Neiman, I'm going to talk about it. Like, I was going to really big him up. I think I was going to be almost bullish on him for obvious reasons. But yeah, with Barnes, it's not so much injury regression. It's just because I'm expecting Campbell to make that big leap this year. I'm hoping we finally, we see why we invested the first round picking him, which is going to eat into Barnes' snaps. So while, yeah, he probably will still play great, he's probably going to have his snaps cut into just because Campbell will rise. And is it worth re-signing him? And will he want to re-sign when he knows he might be a backup guy who's only going to see 40% of snaps and will have to play special teams? We know Malcolm has no issue with that at the wheel behind Anzalone. Hell, he's a special teams beast. Will Barnes be happy being Campbell's backup? I honestly don't know.
I mean, I just don't think he will. I just think all the 3 of them will play 2/3 of the reps, and they'll be happy with that. That's my answer. You will disagree, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's talk then about Ben Neiman, since you're so fucking keen. $1.125 million for Ben Neiman, fairly newly acquired at the linebacker position. Ash, you're so high on him. Let's hear what you have to say.
Keep with a view to re-sign next season. What we're saying with Malcolm and what with JRM, we've got, if we have Neiman, that is a 6 I'm happy to keep, because you have in order at the mic, you have Campbell, Barnes, Neiman, and at the wheel, you have Anzalone, Rodrigo, and JRM. Neiman has started games at linebacker for the Titans, and he's a special teams demon. Kind of like what's happened with Malcolm, kind of like what's happened with JRM. That is a 6 where I am really happy with them. You've got 3 backups who are really good at special teams, and then arguably 3 starters who can take starter reps. that's a really good linebacker room. So for me, Neiman at that price with vet minimum, he's someone I could, if we re-signing Barnes, I could also see us re-signing Neiman and keeping that linebacker room together, because I think Neiman's only 26, 27. That's younger than Anzalone. Honestly, I think Neiman could be a shot this season to people. Only playing about 20% of defensive snaps, admittedly, but with the special teams and that ability to stop the run, that's someone I could see sticking around maybe.
And
I mean, I've not seen him play a snap for Detroit yet, so I'm not going to say what I'm going to do with him next year. There's a reason he's on his 4th team in 4 years. Like, dude's bouncing around. No one wants to keep him. If there's a spot for him here, great, but I need to see it on the field this year. I'm not going to make any rash calls on these guys when I've not seen them play at all. I just don't. I just can't make a call on it at all. We'll see.
I'm making a call. I'm cutting him. Sorry.
Hmm.
No room for linebacker 6, 7.
6. We've kept 6 around for the past couple of seasons.
Don't think he makes it personally, but
offers us more than Pittman did.
Yeah, I'm maybe keeping 5 linebackers potentially. We'll see. On to corners. And the number 1 corner on this list is Carlton Davis. He's the second highest paid player on the list. $14.5 million is his AAV. And he was traded for a high pick to be the cornerback 1. And he is coming towards the end of his career. Potentially re-signing him may not be as expensive as his AAV now, but we've invested highly in the position. So there's lots of ways where this is pulling in both directions.
So this is very easy for me, and this just goes for every corner on this list, and this goes for Amit Robertson as well. I trust our corners about as much as I trust a 60-year-old man trying to entice me into a van with candy. I don't trust any of them. Our corner play has been terrible for so long, with veterans as well, that you have got to go out there and prove it to me. Every single one of these guys, you are not getting a penny out of me until you have shown that you are a part of the future here. I know Amik's got a 2-year deal, but you can cut him for cheap year 2. He's going the way of the dodo if he doesn't do it this year. I have zero tolerance for any for them underperforming in the corner room. So as far as they're all concerned, they're on a wait and see until they prove to me that they deserve to stay here. There's a reason we spent our two first picks in this draft on corners, because we don't have anybody we can trust yet. So the same for all these guys. I'm going to wait and see. If I've got to pay a little bit more, if Carlton Davis has a all-pro year or something stupid like that, and I've got to pay him good money next year, fine. I don't mind doing that because he's proved himself worthy of it. But no one's getting any money before that. Not a cent, not a dime, not nothing.
Ash? Keep a review to release. Traded for him to be our cornerback 1 this year, while hopefully Arnold plays cornerback 2 and then develops to be our CB1 next season. And then we have Rakestraw, who, yes, is going to potentially be our starter in the slot, depending on what happens with Branch. But I could see him maybe becoming that CB2 to start next season on the outside, which then means Davis will probably CB3 if we keep him. Is he want to do that? And is he going to be worth that with what he's potentially going to ask for in contract? I don't know. So keep him this year. If he plays well enough to be better than Rakestraw outside next year, then maybe re-sign him. But I'm leaning, release him, see if we can get a comp pick from the contracts he's going to sign, because he'll probably command $16, $17 million a year. I mean, we signed Cam Sutton to $20 million ourselves when we were needing cornerback. And I'd say Davis has played better than Sutton has had before that point, or at least very close to the same level. So he could get that same kind of contract, which would get us a comp pick. So I think we're getting to that point now where we have to start playing the comp pick game, and Davis is part 1 of that for me.
I am keeping him with a view to putting the transition tag on him, which would pay him $17.25 million projected, which is a bit high. But I think having insurance against Rakestraw not being ready, and as one of the highest people in Rakestraw, it kind of pains me to say that he might not be ready, but he might not be. But we've been so poor at cornerback that I'm willing to be a bit more defensive on the position and kind of give him another chunk of money for another year. So, I mean, if we were able to re-sign him right now and add a further year onto his deal, just one, and get it at less than 17, I'd be delighted. If he would put another 14.5 on it, which is exactly the same as what he's on now, or the AAV, sorry, for what he's on now, and add another year on there, that'd be fine. I think that raises the ceiling and the floor of who we are for the next couple of seasons when our window is slap bang open.
Yeah,
that'll be the peak of his career, and then play the comp game. That's fine, but I think it's slightly early in his career to be playing the comp pick game when you've spent such a high pick to acquire him.
Maybe.
All right, Emmanuel Mosley, just a shade under $3 million. Ash.
Keep with a view to move on from him next year. If he's healthy, he can be our cornerback 3. First guy off the bench while we develop Rakestraw. But after that, I have hopefully Rakestraw's better than him by the start of next season, where he can move on, maybe get a starting job elsewhere as a cornerback too, because corner is also one of those, as we damn well know ourselves, because of the people who've had to trot out at the end of last season, including the 2 people we're going to move on to in a minute, that good starting cornerbacks are not very common. So Mosley could get himself a decentish contract next season if he stays healthy and shows enough this year. So it's see what we can get out of him, get the venture mentorship from him, move on to start at the end of this season, and wish him all the best.
And
He's not going to make the roster. I think he's gone this year. Again, my tolerance for corners is incredibly low, and you bust both ACLs. I'm sorry, but like our division especially, I don't want this guy going up against Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and DJ Moore and all these guys. I'm sorry, I'm done with these vets. I just really am. That's why I'm glad we've got young guys in who are going to be like Terry and Arnold is going to be the guy all the way. I know he could be good depth in here, but all those injuries, I'm not even inclined to give him a depth role now. I would just try and shoot with as many of these younger guys as I can and get them on this roster instead. So I don't think he makes it personally.
I'm with Ash. I think he's a keep with a view to release at the end of the season, most likely. But I can see Ant's point of view and wouldn't be surprised if it was real, given the 2 players we're about to talk about. Because if he doesn't make it, then I think one of these 2 probably will. Khalil Dorsey, $1.4 million, Ant.
Again, I've kind of said my piece for the corners now. Like, I'm not paying any of them a cent right now. Like, at worst, I'm going to keep you and see what happens. I'm not doing anything else to anybody. Nobody has earned a longer future in Detroit. I know these guys are good with special teams, but like, we can find more of those guys. Like, I want to hit on the big guys this year. So all of them are just keep and see what happens.
Ash?
If it was just the special teams, I would keep him. But I agree with how much corner gets hurt. And I know he did start some games for us last season. He looks okay. Because now we've invested so much in the cornerback room, he's been pushed down to the point where, I'll cut him, try and bring him back in the practice squad just as some depth. And if we need him for special teams, we can elevate him. But I honestly rate the guy let's talk to in a minute over him because he showed a lot more on defense than Dorsey did. And with the new special teams rules, those lighter corners, which Dorsey is one of, he's like 5'10", 190. He's not the biggest guy. They're not really what we need at special teams anymore. So his role, even on special teams, might be cut back he might be a good quick return of free for us, because I know he did return a couple of kicks for us in camp and preseason last year. But is he worth keeping that when he's that? Won't really play much on special teams and is at near the bottom of our corner depth? No. Good practice squadder, but not on the 53 for me.
Yeah, agree with you entirely, Ash. Kindle Vordor next up, and the cornerbacks, 1.3 million for all intents and purposes. Ash, what do you think?
Keep with a view to release. Like, good depth. I know he had a couple of mishaps last season, one of which wasn't his fault against Dallas, and then the other one, well, that's just a freak incident. You would play that play a million times, and probably that's the only time he ever hits his face mask like that.
Yeah.
Keep good outside corner 4, can stop spot for you if you need him to.
And you said your piece, right? I'm with Ash. Keep with a view to release at the end of the season. Vildor had a couple of bad plays, but his play was just better than anyone else we had on the roster at that time. That means if you're the lowest possible down there, then that's absolutely fine. Right. The last projected starter / rotation player in the non-special teams area is Ifeatu Melifonwu, $1.2 million. Ash, we're coming back. No, we're not. We're coming to Ant, first for this one. Melifonwu, what do you think?
If he falls into the same bracket as Barnes, I need to see one season of consecutively consistent play from you, and you get a deal here long term. Like, again, I like Iffy. I always have. Just need to see the consistency before I pay him, and this is going to be the year. If he can replicate what he did at the back end of last year, then I'm going to pay him. And I will pay him more money by waiting a little bit to see it happen. So we're all good.
Ash?
Yeah, I think the same. Loved what he did at the end of last season, but I need to see it over a whole season kind of thing. At worst, he's a good, like, sort of replacement level startup free box safety. Let's see if he can maybe break himself rise on those rankings enough to the point where you are comfortable resigning him. Because if not, box safeties are kind of dime a dozen, and we can potentially move on if we need to at the end of the season if he doesn't play well enough.
I really hope that Brian Branch doesn't cannibalize too many of his snaps, because my fear with Melifonwu is that he doesn't get enough of an opportunity to earn the deal, despite what he did last season. I can see it happen. I'm with you guys. Let him play out the year, see what happens. No matter what, he's not going to get a massive deal at the end of it, no matter how well he plays, I don't think. So, that's enough. CJ Moore, 1.125 million. Ash.
This breaks my heart. This really breaks my heart. Keep a review to release at the end of this season. I love the guy. He's shown flashes on defense and he's a great special teamer. But with the guy we're going to discuss in a minute, offers more upside on defense, and you can kind of train him to do what CJ Moore does on special teams. And you've got Varkey coming in to do that, and you've got JRM on special teams. So this season, yeah, keep him, have a great special teams, but next season, Joseph will hopefully make that step on defense, and you've still got, and then Varkey will probably make that jump on special teams to the point where you'll be comfortable moving on, and he can maybe go back to Houston, try again, and play with his brother.
And
yeah, no.
I'm with Ash. Keep to release. And Brandon Joseph, 795 grand exclusive rights.
But you got to wait and see with Brandon because he's not played for us really. So I want to see him as part of the rotation this year, though. I would like to see him play. I think he can. I think he can contribute. I think you can find yourself a depth piece there going forward. So I would keep with a view to extending him longer term if he can contribute this year.
Ash?
Yep, keep and use DRFA Powers, offer him a contract that's relatively cheap and good, and yet tender him, and then I was struggling for the word there until you put it on our notes. Tender him and see what we get there, because
Yeah.
if we can get Northwest and Brandon Joseph on this Lions team, Jesus Christ, him, Branch, and Kirby, and Iffy, there's a quadruple at safety that can do a lot of things well.
Right, I just need to pop off for 2 minutes. I'll introduce the next person, and then Ash, considering you've got the prep doc up, if you could make sure the thoughts circulate and then circulate back for the next person, and hopefully I'll be back for the end of that one. Scott Daly, long snapper, $1.155 million. I'm going to be very quick.
This conversation is going on as long as it takes for you to get back. Fine. Don't think you can get out of this.
I'm not trying to, but he's a cut, and I'll be back in a minute.
Can we just talk about how scummy Italy are first?
Yeah, you saw my face drop. I was really hoping for Croatia to get through there. Like, I'm going to put it in because I know we're both going to say it, and Max just said it.
I'm depressed.
The thing is, I'm also depressed because it guarantees us the last a spot in the last 16.
Oh, we get it anyhow.
We'll get it anyhow, but it's just one of them where, like, I know this is going to sound bad. I want us to do really bad in this Euro so we can finally just fuck Southgate off.
Yeah, I do.
Fucking Southgate. Oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, to get back to the conversation we're supposed to be having, I think I said it last week. Daly's gone for me. I think I don't know if you've ever watched any Hogan Hatton, but the clips I've seen of him when I did a bit of scouting for him for our rookie camp review, I like him. I really like him. And with the new special teams rules, the fact he used to be a linebacker, he's forced a safety before, he's blocked a punt. He's the new kind of long snapper you need in the league now. So Hogan staying, Daly, go seek your fortunes elsewhere, or I don't know, make a living. I don't know. No, UFL special teamer. There we go. Scott Daly.
I mean, I'm going to defer this one to people more in the know. Like, look, there's a limit to my knowledge with this sort of stuff. I tell you who the 6th string linebacker is going to be for Florida International down in college next year, but I can't tell you about linebackers.
Long snappers in the NFL.
Long snappers. Unfortunately, it's not my forte, so I will, I will let those who are in the know more go.
The true sickos.
So yeah. The true sickos for special teams. I'm a sicko for many things. Special teams, unfortunately, is not one of them. But there's only so many things we can be sickos for in life.
Exactly.
I don't have time to learn about long snappers and kickers and stuff like that. So.
Damn it! And I was really looking forward to our discussion in a few weeks about the kicker battle for FSU.
Oh well, no, we talk about how NC State going to kick your ass in the ACC title. Then we can do that. Is there a kicker battle going on there?
Yeah. So Ryan Fitzgerald, who you might remember, he's been our place kicker the past couple of years. He did really well at the start last season, but we've got Jake Weinberg in, who's also really good. So it actually might be a kicker battle at FSU.
There you go. And now the expert is back on long snappers. We waited for him.
So what did you decide? Brief me.
Cut. Hogan Hatton is the new GOAT.
Yeah. So the thing about Daly is that he's not been awful. Like, his snapping is good enough that he made it into the NFL and hung around for a couple of seasons. So he will catch on somewhere else if he doesn't make it here. And the Lions like to keep faith with people they've invested in. So I think there's a good chance that Daly stays in reality. But his snapping has been wayward enough that it has cost us points. And he has also impacted the kicker situation because he's making the kickers look worse than they actually are, which doesn't make it easy to make a decision at kicker when kickers are missing kicks that are down to the long snapper. And the problem is that, like, it's a very specialist skill that's actually extremely difficult. They're severely underpaid as a position because trying to snap it in a window of, I don't know, let's say, what's that?
An Amazon box?
30 centimetres. What's that in American money? 10 inches. 10-inch by 10-inch box. Like, that's what you're going to try and snap into consistently. And when you're not perfect, like Don was, it shows up. And when it comes to wanting to win a Super Bowl, you got a kick to win the game and the snap isn't perfect. You know, like, this is the sort of thing which costs you a win every now and again. That's why I take it so damn seriously. Like, those 3 points are so throwaway with kickers and long snappers until they really matter. Cut, move on. We've got the new guy. Any dissension?
I pass the opinion on to you two because these are long snappers more than me. We need to get you a flag for that left-hand wall of yours. We need to get you a big flag that says #1 long snapper hater on there.
Just here.
Yeah. Long snapper hate is real. Something like that. We just we need to.
Even though it's because I follow the position because I love it so much. Like, that's why I take notice, because it's a great skill.
Or shall we get you like a team long snapper scarf or something like that then? We need to immortalize it.
We were forgetting our discussions 2 months ago about making a long snapper union T-shirt for the merch store.
Yeah, it's the new LSU.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, last guy on the list is Michael Badgley, $1.2925 million. Who wants to say what's going to happen at kicker, people?
Give me a sec. Let me just get my crystal ball out. Let's see if you can actually make it through half the
Hang
season.
on, I want to say I'm not a special teams expert, but I do believe that I'm the only one whose 2 kickers he said were going to be on the roster last week are still here. You were both in the Turner camp, were you not? So I feel like this gives me
my namesake.
I feel like this gives me exclusivity over the kicker field, but no, it really doesn't. But just I don't care. Let's just hope a massive leg appears in college this year and we can draft him and like just be done with this. Like I'm done. So completely done with the kicker thing. Or give like a brain transplant to Jason Hansen into a younger body and redraft him and just do that. Like that'd be the way to go. Clone him and make him younger.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Like, I could say we keep him, but then has 2 bad games in a row because of reasons or another, and then we'll be on to the next person until we find the person to be the incumbent long term. We're just gonna have a revolving door. Honestly, I won't be surprised if we have 3 kickers again on the roster at some point this season. We'll have Badgley, maybe Bates will. I don't know, we'll stick him on the practice squad, and when we cut Badgley, we'll bring him up. And then as soon as Bates plays outdoors and doesn't do well, we'll bring someone back. Hell, Ryan Santoso, you're next up if everything goes wrong. That's what's going to happen. Until we find that one guy, we have no guy.
You know, like how in baseball they think they really, like, the fans really want to try robot umpires. Can we try like robot kickers? Like what are the ethics behind that? Can we just get a robot kicker and teach him to kick from 55 or 60?
Now what we need
ethically not very sound, but we won't have to worry about the kicks again.
Now what we need to do is we need to get Harry Kane as a kicker so the NFL UK account actually tweets nice stuff about us.
Don't. The Bears homers. I like when the Bears come over, that is going to be a cesspit of horrible. It already is a cesspit, but it's going to be even worse than it is now. I think the overall arching feeling is here. Do you think the Lions kicker of the future is going to be? Do you think any of these kickers are going to be on the roster in 12 months? My answer is no.
Yeah, my answer
I think
also
that's
no.
where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I'm like, this is still an unresolved issue, and it doesn't really matter who we've got. We're going to be having this conversation next draft cycle, and like, we're going to be looking at kickers again. I just think that is going to be the be all and end all of it.
Who says it's going to be draft cycle? Who says I'm not halfway through the college season when I'm bored? Ask you to scout college kickers.
You know what? I'd probably do it at this point. Like, for most vital needs for the Lions, kicker's probably up there going into the next draft. Like, you know, we've got so very few big deficiencies on this team that kicker could well be it. So, who's NC State's kicker this year? No, I won't do that. We've got bad kickers.
All right, anything you guys want to put on the audio pod before we sign off?
Mm.
No?
No.
All right, we are going to draw that to a close. That was our review of everyone who has an expiring deal for the 2024 NFL season. What do we do with them? We re-signed them, traded them, cut them, kept them with a view to do whatever, or tag or release them. We recap the news, including that Justin Rogers has announced he's leaving the Detroit News in a shock move, and congratulations to Jared Goff on his wedding. We'll be back next week on the main show with a subject to be announced, because we need to find out something to talk about. I'm sure something will happen in the next 7 days, or maybe I'll nick a contributor from a beat writer potentially. Hey, we could try and get Justin. That'd be fun. That'd be cool. The College Football Podcast, of course, had its CUSA Part 2, which released yesterday on YouTube and last week on the audio pod. And what are you doing on the College Podcast tomorrow?
So we're doing the Pack 2 and the Independents, because Ryan's in Japan next week and the conferences themselves take 2 weeks. So I didn't want to start one off and then not have him next week. So yeah, what's left of the Pac-12 we're going to do the Independents. It's 5 teams. And then when Ryan's on holiday, I figure I'm probably going to do a Q&A if people want to do that. So if you've got any questions college-wise or anything, do that. And then I can do that while I'm away, because I don't want to do any of the guests or previews without him. But yeah, Washington State, Oregon State, Notre Dame, UMass, UConn tomorrow. All good stuff. Lots of do your Lions draft picks for those teams. There's some interesting ones in there. Send you down memory lane.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping I'm going to be around so I can at least stream it, because I think that's going to be something that's going to be in demand. But the CUSA preview is really worth listening to, because, well, draft picks come out the CUSA, so it's worth listening to. It's maybe one of the most interesting conferences in the entire FBS.
It is. And the thing is, with a group of 5, I know a lot of these players maybe not necessarily get drafted, but a lot of them get picked up by Power 4 schools. So you hear about these guys before. Like Notre Dame tomorrow, you got Chris Mitchell going there this year, the wide receiver. He's going to be big player in this year's draft cycle. If you listen last year, you heard about him. So it might not be for this year's draft, but it's for future drafts. It's very intriguing. So yeah, that's why we do it. Give love to the small schools. We're small school lovers here. Apart from when it's ACC related, and then we're bitterly vitriolic to one another. But it's all fun and games.
You have a question from Lisa as well for the Q&A. She's giving you a heads up early. But here we go with our socials. Please do follow us. It really helps us out. If you want a laugh on Twitter, now called X, then follow our account, mainly just because you see Ant ripping into accounts that deserve it, and that's worth just following the account alone. Otherwise, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, for all the Lions UK, you know where to find us. And the group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK1 Pride Worldwide on Facebook. The website, rotluk.com. You can see Ash's article on the best and worst case scenarios for our draft picks this year, released today, Monday, if you are listening to this later on. Just remains for me to thank my co-hosts, Anthony Fitzpatrick and Ashley Soden, and we'll see you next time on the Royal Lions UK podcast. But for now, let's go Lions, one pride.
One pride.
Recording stopped.
And actually, even though I was going to continue on the live bit for a bit, it's been 3.25 hours. So, guys, college show on tomorrow. We'll see you then. But goodbye for now.